Chapter 3043 Mechas. Lin Chi followed suit and quickly cleaned out all the people inside the 3 space carriers, and completely took over the control of the 3 space carriers. But there were dozens of fighter planes and hundreds of Project Source fighters outside. After sensing that something was wrong, they all stayed away from the space carrier. Moreover, the 3 mechas had already received the hint and activated the propulsion devices on their backs, soaring directly into the sky and disappearing. Although the space carrier is huge, it is just a product of the old era. It will not hurt even if it is destroyed. However, these 3 mechas are the latest war giants developed by the North American Federation. How can they be lost here? But with the benefits in hand, how could Lin Chi let them escape easily? The spaceship in the sky gradually revealed its full appearance, and streaks of blue light shot out, hitting all the escaping fighter planes and blasting them into pieces on the spot. Immediately afterwards, Lin Chi stood on the deck of the space carrier, drew his bow and arrows and fired rapidly. Arrows were flying, and after locking on those targets, almost no one was missed, and the sky was cleared in a short time. As the last escaped Project Source soldier was shot down with an arrow, all the people brought by the 3 space carriers died in Lin Chi's hands. But those 3 mechas all flew out of the miasma forest and disappeared from sight. Those Project Source armors can withstand missile attacks, even nuclear explosions at close range, and even laser weapons. Why can you kill them with one arrow? Shuya had never seen the power of Lin Chi's arrows, and was deeply suspicious of this ordinary cold weapon. Although it was already known from the data that Lin Chi had various methods, especially the extremely powerful bow and arrow. His target was the superheroes of the North American Federation, and no one could withstand the power of his arrow. It's just that they are too weak. Lin Chi didn't want to explain his special abilities. Even if he did, he was afraid that others wouldn't believe him. After all, his arrow skills were so abnormal that he didn't dare to aim at some targets easily. But after clearing the threats on the 3 space carriers, there are still a large number of mutant beasts in the miasma forest, especially the mysterious white sheep. However, when the white sheep saw the scene of human beings killing each other, it did not send out a herd of mutant beasts to take the opportunity to attack, but quietly hid itself. At this moment, there was only the silhouette of the mutated white sheep on the mountaintop, standing proudly like a mythical beast, staring at Lin Chi. What's so special about the 8th level mutant beast? Let Wei Lan control the 3 space carriers to leave the miasma forest, while Lin Chi flew in the direction of the mutant Ares alone. After crossing dozens of kilometers and arriving in front of the mutated white sheep, he slowly stopped. The mutated Ares is not big, only 100 meters tall, and looks a little thin. It is not the kind of fighting beast that focuses on the body. The hair on its body is slender and soft, and it has a pair of giant eyes with horizontal pupils, exuding the light of wisdom. It stared at Lin Chi intently for a long time, then slowly raised its feet and took a step back, as if it was afraid. When it was a 7th level mutant beast, it was shot by Lin Chi with an arrow. Although the injury was not serious, it still has a deep memory. When meeting the other party again this time, it is inevitable that there will be a trace of fear in my heart. The 2 sides stared at each other for a long time before the mutated white sheep slowly retreated and disappeared into the forest. Lin Chi did not pursue it. The ability of this mutant white sheep was unknown, but it must have special means to summon so many mutant beasts to gather here. At present, it seems that with the protection of the miasma forest, it is difficult for humans to enter it, and they do not go out too much to destroy it. But they have reached a delicate balance. At this stage, human beings are developing rapidly. If the mutated beasts here are completely detonated, part of their strength will definitely be allocated to deal with the outbreak of the beast tide. It is better to have a short period of peace with his own strength. Even if this mutated Ares reaches the 9th level of strength, it is still no match for him. It would be better to keep it free for a while. At this moment, many teams have gathered outside. Some came from the Central Plains Security Zone for support, and there were also teams sent from the 4 major bases. They gathered outside the miasma forest. After learning what happened here, the 2 teams couldn't wait to enter the miasma forest. All they could see was Lin Chi's figure and the mess on the ground. Commander Lin, where have those mutated beasts gone? In addition to getting the 3 space carriers of the North American Federation, they came here with the intention of taking advantage of Lin Chi's attack on the mutant beasts here to get some benefits. But at this moment, in the miasma forest, apart from the wreckage left behind by the bombing, not even a single living mutant beast was found. If you run away, why don't you still wait for us here? Lin Chi gathered his mental power and took out all the genetic crystals from the ruins. With his power, They slowly floated into an aircraft. These can be regarded as the trophies left behind. As for the remains of the mutated beasts on the ground, they can be taken back by the incoming aircraft. The person who spoke, Lin Chi, did not know him, and he looked very young. He should be a second-generation figure from the 4 major bases. The other party noticed that Lin Chi's tone was unkind and did not dare to retort. After a moment of silence, he ordered his men to clean up the remains of the mutated beasts in the ruins. Although these things were all burnt black by bombing, they were still valuable. If they were left here, they would only become nourishment for mutant beasts and evolved bugs. Although 3 space carriers and a large number of Project Source cores were captured this time, all the most valuable armored giants escaped, which was actually a big regret. After the second-generation genius learned about the situation, he quickly dispatched a search team to continuously search for information about the mecha giant. But they arrived late, and they didn't even capture the other party's information, and couldn't find any trace at all. Back on the spaceship, Lin Chi asked Wei Lan to control the 3 space carriers back to the safe zone, and at the same time opened the screen to monitor the 3 mecha giants. Such a huge mecha giant cannot fly long distances at all. It must choose to land at a base and wait for rescue to replenish energy. Sure enough, the 3 red dots in the picture had flown hundreds of kilometers away and were now out of the sea, heading towards an island country. As expected, they are the same. But you didn't expect that I also have a backup there. After learning the destination of the 3 mechas, Lin Chi was not in a hurry. He first took the 3 space carriers back to the safe zone and disposed of the loot. Although these things were temporarily seized, no one knew if there were any hidden dangers inside. So they spent some time and used mechanical modification skills to check them inside and out. After doing all this, the spacecraft took off again, carrying the mammoth giant, and flew towards the island country. Chapter 305 Siege of Godzilla. There were people controlling each of the 3 mechas. It was probably because they had not gained anything, so they wanted to try to hunt Godzilla to make up for the subsequent losses. On the island country, scorched earth is everywhere, and most of the cities have been reduced to ruins. Now only one base is left struggling to support it, and there is a crisis of destruction at any time. When the 3 mechas landed, they immediately caused a ripple. The impact of one landing was so great that it trampled the ground and half of his body sank into it. When such a huge mecha giant came to the island, it attracted the attention of the surrounding mutant beasts. Those weak ones fled here one after another, and some even went underground and disappeared. The island country's only base also received the Mecha Titan's message and immediately sent several fighter jets to cover it. After a simple negotiation, the 3 mechas walked towards the largest volcano under the cover of fighter jets. Godzilla has always stayed in the volcano to absorb the energy of the volcano, and only occasionally goes out to vent the surge of energy in his body. For the support of the 3 mecha giants of the North American Federation, the island country's safety zone expressed gratitude from the heart. After all, if the great scourge ravaging the island can be driven away, then they may have the possibility of rising again. Otherwise, the next time Godzilla accidentally comes to their last safe zone, the island nation will be completely extinct. Lin Chi also took a spaceship to the sky above the volcano. As far as he could see, the volcano had collapsed in half, and magma erupted from the flame mouth from time to time, converging into a bright red river and slowly flowing. The raging energy fluctuates with each other, indicating that this volcano can erupt at any time. Suddenly, a missile flew through the air and hit the crater accurately. There was only a loud bang, and the remaining half of the volcano exploded instantly. Countless magma exploded like rain, and the entire mountain split into 2 halves. The rushing magma couldn't stop flowing down the mountain, and instantly ignited violent flames. Black smoke filled the air, dyeing the sky black. A huge roar came from the ground, followed by violent shaking. Hundreds of feet of rock formations lifted up from the ground, and a giant beast broke out of the ground. Half of Godzilla's body emerged from the ground, still covered in hot magma. At this moment, most of his body has turned dark red, especially the spine on his back, which is constantly flashing red as the energy surges. The 3 armors dispersed, and one of them took off the giant cannon on his back and concentrated and charged it. Boom! The blue source laser spurted out, creating heavy ripples in the air and hitting Godzilla's head. This sudden blow knocked half of Godzilla's body to the ground, and even some of the scales on his cheeks fell off. The first attack was successful, and the other 2 armors also used their methods. They bombarded with heavy cannons on their shoulders and fired lasers from their arms. temporarily suppressing Godzilla. If it were a normal mutant beast, this kind of attack would not only kill him, but also seriously injure him. But after all, Godzilla has special defense, and has absorbed the power of radiation and lava. His own energy resistance has already reached its extreme level. In the smoke, Godzilla slowly raised his head, condensed red energy light from his mouth, and spurted it out. Boom! A thick laser directly hit the body of a mecha giant, and the powerful impact instantly broke the arm of the mecha. A huge cannon fell to the ground, and the blue laser cut a deep mark on the ground. Lacking an attack to suppress, Godzilla stood up slowly, and the energy in his body completely exploded, turning red and warm. The other two mechas also drew out cold weapons, a 100-meter-long machete, and the other had 3 short guns connected together to form a long gun. The propulsion device behind them was turned on, and they rushed towards Godzilla. In close combat, the mecha's reaction speed is obviously not as fast as Godzilla's, but the opponent's weapons can make up for some shortcomings. The long knife swept across and hit Godzilla's back hard. Sparks flew everywhere, and a whole piece of his back was chopped off. Hearing Godzilla's painful scream, another mecha jumped up and thrust out its spear. The mecha with its severed hand continued to harass the rear, and once again suppressed Godzilla. Such cooperation gave them hope of defeating each other. The confrontation with cold weapons caused Godzilla to retreat step by step. Every heavy blow would cause visible injuries on his body, but this also gradually weakened his blood. Godzilla's scales completely turned red. A roar erupted, and red energy vibrated and spread from his body. The 3 mechas were instantly shaken back, and the red energy ripples exploded, completely turning the only remaining buildings around into ruins. I saw that the long tail behind Godzilla turned extremely red. A burst of red energy condensed at the tip of the tail, and a violent red beam of light shot out. The laser swept across, hitting the bodies of 3 mechas instantly, sweeping them all to the ground. Burning red marks suddenly appeared on the hit area, and even signs of melting appeared on the surface. But this did not completely destroy the 3 mechas. There was only a brief pause. The 3 mechas stood up again and rushed towards Godzilla with weapons in hand. From high in the sky, Lynchie had a panoramic view of the battle between the 4 giants. Although it was 3 against 1, it was obvious that Godzilla was stronger. If those 3 mechas don't have special trump cards, I'm afraid the final winner will be the mutant beast. Bye Sue. Let's defeat those 3 mechas first, and then look for opportunities to kill this Godzilla monster. The battle on the ground is in a stalemate, and it will be impossible to tell the winner for a while. But if other forces join, it will definitely lead to different changes. After receiving the order, Baisu quickly controlled the mammoth giant and flew out of the spaceship. While falling from a high altitude, he had already aimed at a battle armor not far away. The zombie giant had also arrived nearby. He jumped up from a mountain and rushed towards another armor. Under the control of Lin Chi, the zombie giant had extremely strong flexibility. It was covered with a thick layer of armor and looked like a steel mecha. As soon as it appeared, it knocked down the gun-wielding mecha giant with one move. The 2 mechas were instantly repelled by the sudden attack, leaving only the mecha with a severed hand to deal with Godzilla alone. Without the help of his companions, the one-armed man who was already somewhat inflexible was instantly bitten by Godzilla. The energy from his mouth exploded, and his head was blown off. The Project Source warrior in the mecha had just flown out, preparing to escape from this place of right and wrong, when suddenly an arrow fell from the sky, directly piercing his body, and he fell to the ground helplessly. Godzilla roared fiercely, and 2 giant mechas suddenly appeared. Although the predicament in front of him was solved, the unknown sense of danger struck again. It didn't think that the 2 mechas were here to help. So under the unknown sense of crisis, it once again condensed red energy light in its mouth and aimed it at the 4 fighting mechas. Chapter 306: The Destruction of the Island Nation. 4 humanoid mechas and a giant beast fought frantically in the ruins. The energy aftermath sputtered from time to time, destroying the surrounding ruins again into a desperate situation. The flowing magma from the volcano gradually condensed into a small lake at the foot of the mountain, forcing everyone to move the battlefield. Baisu, guide them towards the safe zone of the island country, and get rid of them once and for all. Lin Chi was distracted in his command on the spaceship, and at the same time, he kicked Godzilla on the head, dispersing his condensed energy cannon. Baisu, who controlled the mammoth giant, instantly understood Lin Chi's thoughts. While entangled with another mecha, he retreated towards the safe zone. The 2 mechas of the North American Federation have no way out. The energy in their mechas no longer supports the 2 of them to escape from the island country. and they can only hold on until the backup troops arrive. Or use the power of the island country's base to defeat the two mechas that suddenly appeared. After a brief exchange, the two quickly contacted the island country's safety zone and ordered them to send the most powerful combat force to help them. Therefore, both parties had the idea of moving the battlefield. So the scene turned into a Godzilla monster chasing four mechas, moving towards the island country's safe zone. The island country's safe zone, which was still watching the show and preparing to pick up the leaks, suddenly became chaotic when it noticed this situation, and had to send out all the forces in the safe zone to intercept it. Otherwise, when these five behemoths attack the safe zone, it will become the biggest disaster for the island country's base. Once their last human safety zone is destroyed, the island nation will be completely removed from Blue Star, and will no longer have any right to speak. Even if there will still be some surviving forces by then, who will care about the countries that have been destroyed? So the only dozens of Source Project fighters in the island country's safe zone were all activated, and the fighter jets in the base poured out, forming a temporary team and heading towards the five behemoths to intercept them. In the field of vision, five behemoth figures gradually appeared. Although they were still in a fighting state, they were obviously moving towards the island country's safe zone. Attack! Stop them, and don't let them get closer to the safe zone. The fluctuations of the energy burst at this moment can already threaten their safety zone. If not stopped, the survivors in the safety zone will definitely be affected. This is the last remaining human being in their island country. With an order, countless attacks were directed at the five giant creatures indiscriminately, trying to get them to leave the area. However, this move completely angered Godzilla. Although he suffered several losses in dealing with these four giant mechas, those tiny attacks seemed even more annoying to him. So he concentrated his energy again, and the red light on his back became more intense. Godzilla leaned to the ground. His back flashed with red light, and lasers poured out one after another, shooting continuously in the sky. Although this dense laser attack could not cause much damage to the giant mecha, when it hit the fighter jets, it would only miss a corner and destroy those weak fighter jets. The Source Project warriors flying in the sky continued to avoid these attacks, and a few unlucky ones were vaporized on the spot, leaving only part of the Source Plan armor materials, which fell to the ground. Godzilla exploded with his ultimate move, directly destroying everything around him. Even red scorch marks appeared on the ground, and the melted ground continued to sink downwards. The zombie giant took advantage of the pause after Godzilla released the battle, quickly rushed forward, grabbed the huge tail, and dragged it towards the safe zone with all his strength. Baisu on the side noticed Lin Chi's intention and knocked back another mecha with a knife. He also rushed forward. After pushing up Godzilla's body, he turned on the energy propulsion device on his back at full strength and directly pushed Godzilla up. Got up. The two of them cooperated with each other and threw Godzilla into the safe zone of the island country in one breath, directly destroying a large area. There were constant screams in the safe zone, and people fled quickly from time to time. And there were also many awakened people who used their abilities to attack Godzilla. This undoubtedly aroused the anger of the giant beast in white. It can destroy most of the buildings with just a single movement of its body. For a moment, with it as the center, the entire safe zone fell into complete chaos. Lin Chi and Baisu had already locked onto the other two mechas, and without having to worry about them, they fully unleashed all their abilities. I saw a layer of red energy attached to the long knife in the giant mammoth's hand. The knife fell and directly cut off the head of the knife-wielding mecha. In the end, only one mecha with a gun was left. Under the siege of the two men, it was unable to make effective resistance and was directly smashed into the safe zone, completely lifeless. Godzilla saw that two more opponents were missing, and he suddenly became excited and roared to the sky. The energy in his body exploded, and a ripple erupted from his body again. The powerful impact instantly raised the entire safety zone to the ground, and even the city walls on the edge were completely covered. Just this one blow killed an unknown number of humans in the safe zone, and even the remaining fighter jets in the sky were shaken to the ground. The mammoth giant's energy also vented, constantly competing with Godzilla. But most of the attacks hit empty spaces, and only destroyed buildings in the safe zone. The equipment on the zombie giant lacks long-range attacks, so he has no choice but to fight hand-to-hand, constantly restricting Godzilla's movements. The zombie giant pulled out his spear, jumped up suddenly, and smashed it down, inserting the gun into Godzilla's huge tail, temporarily fixing it in place. Then he took a step forward, and the two mechas controlled Godzilla's forelimbs respectively. The scene instantly fell into a stalemate. Lin Chi had already flown out of the spaceship, After killing the surrounding Source Project warriors with a few arrows, he activated his strongest skills again. A circular hatch opened in the middle of the spacecraft, and a giant gun slowly fell from it, falling straight towards Godzilla. When the giant gun was fully revealed, Lin Chi jumped onto the tail of the gun, blessing it with various abilities. Fu Long Xiang Tianpa opened the heaven gate with one shot. A spiral gun shadow suddenly appeared on the top of the rotating spear. With the support of the two forces, it fell rapidly and rolled up a hurricane. The hurricane cut to the extreme and even turned into a black tornado. After breaking through the air, it formed a violent sound barrier. The next second, flames rose into the sky and burned violently. The giant flame gun fell straight down, hit Godzilla's back hard, and penetrated. The giant beast's body was torn apart, and bright red energy burst out, shaking the two giant mechas apart. The uncontrollable energy was completely detonated, and the entire safe zone was instantly blown to pieces by this force. When all the energy stopped stirring, there was only a withered body of a giant beast left, with a dark spear stuck on its back. Chapter 307 Invitation from the Beijing Safe Zone. This blow not only killed Godzilla, but even completely destroyed the entire safe zone. The shock waves erupted from the two forces leveled the ground. The spaceship slowly emerged, hovering over the ruins, and the traction light fell, collecting all the loot into the spacecraft. Clean the battlefield and leave as soon as possible. At this moment, Lin Chi has noticed that there are a lot of fluctuations coming, which should be the spying methods of other federations. I am afraid that it will not be long before a large number of fleets arrive here. The two of them collected all the core equipment of the Source Project, entered the spacecraft, and quickly rushed into the sky. Sure enough, not long after leaving, a spaceship of the same size slowly appeared above the ruins of the safe zone, with blue light falling and scanning the ground continuously. However, Lin Chi collected all the valuable things in the ruins, leaving nothing behind for them. Before returning to the safe zone, Lin Chi received messages from the 4 major bases, as well as a large number of unknown greetings, with various high-tech means at this stage. This large-scale operation must have been clearly detected by others, and there is no possibility of concealment. In addition to the inquiries from the 4 major bases, the rest of this information is from other federations. After all, that war not only took away 3 mechas from the North American Federation, but also destroyed a safe zone. I don't know how many survivors died. However, Lin Chi felt clear about all this. After returning to the safe zone, the repair of the 3 mechas became the most important thing, especially with his perfect skills in mechanical transformation. Lin Chi quickly mastered this new technology that was different from his own. The two complement each other and are perfected, so that the capabilities of the giant mecha have been improved again. Spring arrived in the blink of an eye, as Lin Chi successfully hunted the 7th level mutant Godzilla. Several other major federations also made gains. Information about the successful hunting of the 7th level mutant beast came from the Source Project Center from time to time. Even the 4 major federations, the Federation also completed 2 hunting missions. With the assistance of giant mechas, hunting large mutant beasts is no longer difficult, but the price paid each time is different. The safe zone has entered a rapid development mode. At the same time, Lin Chi is constantly absorbing the surrounding safe zones, gathering all the survivors together, and redividing the areas for human activities. After mastering the core technology of mechas, the safe zone began to mass-produce small mechas and neutral mechas, with heights of 10 meters and 30 meters. These 2 types of mechas have combat types and auxiliary types. One part is responsible for the construction of the safe zone, and the other part is responsible for combat protection. In a short period of time, the defense of the safe zone has been raised to a higher level. After time, Lin Chi had opened the strength of the 5th level gene lock to the extreme, and began to absorb the power of the 6th level gene crystal. Although he lagged behind a lot in terms of gene locks in the early days, as time passed, this level of perfection, which consumed twice as much as ordinary people, gradually caught up. The 5th level of perfection has brought about earth-shaking changes in Lin Chi's mental power. He can even control everything around him with a single thought. Reaching this level, the power of human awakening has undergone earth-shaking changes, and it is not an exaggeration for some people to even describe themselves as gods. Therefore, the inherent concepts of human beings have quietly begun to change. In the central area of the safe zone, Lin Chi has changed to a new residence, and in the base open underground, a holographic structure that simulates the outside world has been implemented. The scene switched to the beach coast, and Lin Chi was lying on a deck chair on the beach. enjoying the rare tranquility. The simulated sea breeze is quite realistic. The waves are not rolling, and the tides are gusty. A few people were playing around, as if they were in a peaceful era, making people forget all the pressure. Suddenly, an illusory projection appeared in front of Lin Chi's eyes, and in the picture was Dongfang Song, whom he had met several times before. The two have rarely contacted each other since they added communication methods, except for a few greetings during the new year. Commander Lin, where are you? Dongfang Song saw a hint of surprise in his eyes when he saw the background of the beach after Lin stood up. You must know that the south is now completely occupied by mutant beasts. Where can there be such a comfortable place? Anything? If you can contact me during this time, there must be something very important. And it won't just be a casual chat. It's like this. We recently discovered some strange mutant beasts. We organized a team of Project Source warriors to go explore them, but they all lost their traces. We hope to get your help. The safety zone where Dongfang Song is located is the capital safety zone. Although it is not the largest safety zone now, it has a very deep foundation due to its geographical advantages. Now after integration, it has become the largest safety zone in the north. Problems that even they find difficult must be very scary. After several missions, the crisis was still not found. So he thought of asking Lin Chi for help. Send the information and let me take a look. What is the crisis that leaves you all helpless? Lin Chi was also a little surprised. The strength of the Beijing security zone was not weak, and even surpassed the Central Plains security zone in some aspects. But it still encountered problems that could not be solved. After receiving the reply, Dongfang Songsai transmitted a message, instructing Lin Chi to read it before replying. This piece of information is from the depths of a mountain range, seemingly from the perspective of a Project Source soldier. As the perspective moves, it gradually enters a cave in the mountains. The constantly flashing green light reminded Lin Chi subconsciously of the lizard people he had encountered in the Kunlun Mountains. That green source of light is a modified creature mixed with alien genes. Sure enough, not long after, the picture suddenly became blurred, and the information was completely cut off. Among the information, there are detailed inferences about the safety zone in the capital, as well as additions from the 4 major bases. It has almost been concluded that there should be a spaceship of the same size hidden in this cave. And there is even a high possibility of alien life. Body? This discovery aroused Lin Chi's interest. After all, only the North American Federation currently has living alien life, and detailed information has never been seen. I'll go over and take a look tomorrow. Lin Chi replied and immediately became energetic. After saying hello to the group, he stood up and walked out. After passing through the virtual space projection, the person has appeared in a white room. The super armor was displayed nearby, and it attached itself to his body as soon as he thought about it. Lin Chi didn't dare to be careless when dealing with this unknown alien creature. Although his abilities were abnormal, he couldn't guarantee whether he would encounter any danger. Jean Na, accompany me on a mission tomorrow. After thinking about it, Lin Chi decided to take Jean Na with him. After all, the opponent's ability to escape into space could save his life at critical moments. Husband? Are we just the two of us? Jean Na, who was playing on the beach, suddenly felt happy when she heard Lin Chi's message. In the safe zone, she and Lin Chi had no chance to be alone together. What was the difference between going out on a mission and going on a honeymoon? Chapter 308 Unknown Intelligent Life. The next day, after Lin Chi explained everything about the safe zone, he took Jean Na into the spaceship and flew towards the coordinates given by Dongfang Song. That mysterious place is deep in the mountains north of the Federation. Even in the previous peace period, it was deep in the mountains and forests, and inaccessible to people. Although it has passed the early spring, those mountains are still covered with heavy snow, and the wind is biting. The wildly growing vegetation has made the mountains extremely deep, and some special plants have grown to a height of 500 meters, towering into the clouds. Lin Chi stopped the spaceship above the atmosphere, turned on the stealth mode, and flew down with Jean Na. Not long after landing, they saw the flying fleet in the safe zone of the capital. It was also suspended on a high mountain at the moment, and the surrounding area was heavily guarded. Brother Lin, you are finally here. Dongfang Song had already received Lin Chi's message and greeted him immediately. When Duan Ruiyun, who was traveling with him, saw Lin Chi, his eyes showed admiration. Perhaps this woman was a little pretentious before, but she had heard too many stories about Lin Chi's deeds, and her attitude changed without even realizing it. After all, The two of them had a cooperative relationship with Lin Chi, so it was most appropriate for them to come to greet him. Long time no see. You two have improved your strength quite well. Lin Chi roughly sensed it, and found out that Dongfang Song and Duan Ruiyun's Gene Lock realms had also reached the 5th level, but were not in a perfect state. The materials of the Source Project armor are also at the 7th level, but the core energy is still at the 6th level. No matter how much you are promoted, you can't compare to Brother Lin. If you don't encounter difficult problems, I really don't want to trouble Brother Lin. Dongfang Song looked ashamed. The huge safe zone in the capital and the support of the 4 major bases were unable to break through the defense deep in the cave, if it hadn't been delayed for too long. For fear of attracting prying eyes from other federations, the security zone's top brass wouldn't ask for help from Lin Chi. It's just a little effort. After all, we are all members of the Federation. After the two exchanged some pleasantries, Dongfang Song took them to the largest aircraft. This aircraft is also a product of the new era. The entire body is made of high-level mutant beast materials, and the core is manufactured by the Source Project. Both attack and defense are outstanding. The internal structure is very solemn and solemn. After passing through a long passage, you enter a space. This is already the central area of the aircraft. After entering, you will see a space like a small conference room, with a holographic projection in the middle. In the conference room, several middle-aged men wearing casual uniforms were analyzing the data on the projection. When they saw Dongfang Song bringing someone in, they all turned their heads and looked at Lin Chi curiously. He is indeed the first person in the new era. With extraordinary magnanimity, when Lin Chi heard the compliment, he didn't take it to heart. After all, the other person wanted something from someone. If he continued to act condescendingly, he would be really out of his mind. Hello, leaders. Junior Lin Chi. Although these people all looked middle-aged and did not look old at all, Lin Chi would not mistake them for people who were only a dozen years older than him. When seeing the other party's appearance, Wei Lan had already presented all the other party's data. Even the youngest-looking one is at least over 60 years old. Being able to maintain a youthful appearance and figure is only possible if the genetic strength is not low and special means are used. Why don't leaders lead? Everyone is in the same situation now. We are all working hard for the future of mankind. Speaking of which, the status of us old guys may not be as good as yours. The middle-aged man at the head said with a smile that although the Beijing security zone still maintained its orthodox status, the power of Jinli was still inferior to the 4 major bases. After all, for the sake of the future of mankind, most of the Federation's supplies and equipment were transferred to the 4 major bases. If it weren't for the sudden rise of the Central Plains security zone, which turned the Central Plains area into an impenetrable line of defense, I'm afraid the Beijing security zone might not have developed. Lin Chi is now the leader of the Central Plains security zone, so his status is naturally not weaker than theirs. Take a seat first. We are in some serious trouble this time, and have to ask Commander Lin for help. I hope to get your help. Only then did Lin Chi notice that there were 2 factions in the conference room. After comparing the information, he discovered that some of the other people were sent by the 4 major bases. The faces of these people were a little ugly. After all, the spaceship in the Kunlun Mountains was something they had planned for a long time, and they didn't expect that they would get Lin Chi's advantage in vain. And the things in the Snowy Mountains, this time, are even more valuable than those in the Kunlun Mountains. If Lin Chi gets it again, the 4 major bases will be completely crushed. The leading middle-aged man is named Xiao Shengwu. He has the aura of a superior, but his attitude is very kind. On the contrary, the few next to them kept a straight face and were quite dignified. After a brief introduction, Xiao Shengwu unfolded the holographic projection in the middle and began to tell Lin Chi the secret they discovered. Since the beginning of winter, the Beijing security zone has joined forces with the 4 major bases to hunt down 7th-level mutant beasts. Although they suffered losses several times, they still managed to kill a few. Later, during a rigorous search, the secret in this deep mountain was discovered. It was a 6th-level mutated creature that looked like a human and an animal. It had considerable intelligence and could even speak human language. The 2 major forces used all their strength to kill the mutant creature, and thus discovered the secret deep in the snow-capped mountains. Like the mutant lizardmen, the genetic crystals of these mutant creatures are green, and they have special genomes in their bodies. They are obviously modified creatures. After some investigation, unknown information fluctuations were discovered deep in the snow-capped mountains, but they were blocked by an indestructible energy barrier. It took a month and still failed to break through. But within that energy barrier, special mutated creatures would appear from time to time. posing a certain threat to them. The holographic projection is well constructed, but you can only see the surface. If you want to know what's going on inside, you still have to go in and explore. Lin Chi thought about it for a moment, and decided to go down and experience it for himself. If it was really a base of alien creatures, it must be destroyed as soon as possible. The blue star can only accommodate one kind of intelligent life, and all invaders must be eliminated. Although these people in the conference room have strong genetic strength, their strength is very weak, so it is naturally impossible to follow them in. Therefore, Xiao Zheng would quickly arrange a team to cooperate with Lin Chi, including Dongfang Song and Duan Ruoyan. The other two were projects or soldiers sent by the 4 major bases, and one of them was an acquaintance of Lin Chi, the owner of Pengdu's armor, Ge Tong. The other person, like Duan Ruoyan, is a woman named Wei Qingyi. Chapter 309: The Transformed Mutant Beast. The 6-person team gave a brief introduction before flying deeper into the valley. Too many people can sometimes be nothing more than a drag. Commander Lin, we are familiar with the road. Let's take the lead. Dongfang Song said first that although this mysterious cave is not dangerous to a few people, in order to avoid unnecessary trouble, some caution should be taken. Okay, be careful. As he approached the depths of the valley, Lin Chi sensed the energy contained in it. The rich aura of source power was completely different from the last time he was in the Kunlun Mountains. The traces of this valley were obviously created by the impact of a huge object. The strange thing is that it did not cause any ripples to spread, as if it melted directly into it. This should be the energy barrier shattering everything around it when it touches it, thereby absorbing a large amount of energy and maintaining the impact at the forefront. Dongfang Song and the other two led the way. When they entered the depths of the cave, a faint green light emitted from the surrounding walls, and the energy was so permeated that it even overflowed. The energy is so rich that it's overflowing. This kind of biological energy can be directly absorbed and utilized. Even the people who occupy this cave can enhance their own source energy if they stay here for a long time. While Lin Chi was sighing, a powerful energy wave suddenly came from the depths of the cave. The energy impact caused all 6 people to stop. I saw a huge beast with green light all over it slowly crawling out of the cave. Its 2 green eyes were like 2 bright lights, staring at the 6 people. Level 6 Green Goblin. In this cave, there are a variety of mutant creatures, all of which have been given code names by the Beijing Security Zone. This mutant beast, called the Green Goblin, is the most terrifying among them. 6th level? This kind of genetic strength and aura are not much worse than the 7th level mutant beasts outside. Right? Although it is not large in size, it is still a crawling creature with 4 limbs. But its body surface is covered with scales, and its head is covered with a white exoskeleton. It was only a dozen meters high, but the intimidating power it exuded was even more terrifying than the giant prairie lion that it had hunted back then. Lin Chi condensed a spear in his hand and prepared to attack. Yes, the mutant beasts here are stronger than those outside, and they are full of energy. They should not be underestimated. Mutated beasts that can activate source power are all special beings that have special opportunities when growing up, or they have been genetically modified like this. Seeing Lin Chi preparing to take action, Dongfang Song quickly reminded him, Brother Lin, be careful. Don't collapse the cave. He didn't doubt whether Lin Chi could deal with the green monster, but he was afraid that the damage caused would be too great and the entire cave would collapse. After all, I had seen Lin Chi's terrifying attacks before, and they were all devastating moves. That said, I really need to restrain myself. The raised gun slowly retracted and turned into a small gun in the blink of an eye. Let us do it. At this time, Ge Tong stood up. His body lifted up little by little, and in the blink of an eye, his figure suddenly rose to about 10 meters. A wild power emanated from him, charging straight away with a violent aura. Wei Qingyi followed closely behind him, with a spiral spike extending from his arm and spinning rapidly. Ge Tong jumped up and jumped directly in front of the Green Goblin. He smashed down with his huge fist, and green light suddenly exploded. The Green Goblin's most powerful attack is undoubtedly the violent source energy in his body. But in the face of this sudden close attack, he has no chance to use it. This punch directly caused the energy in its mouth to leak out, making it impossible to condense it at all. The Green Goblin roared angrily, and green light bloomed all over his body. Green light lit up on his back, and the burst of energy condensed out again. But the next second, a thick arm directly hugged its neck, fixing it tightly. Ge Tong's powerful force actually pressed the green demon directly to the ground. No matter how hard its limbs struggled, It could not break free from the restraints of its arms. The thick long tail behind his back tightly wrapped around Gutong. But this powerful force could not break the defense of the 7th level armor. Wei Qingyi had jumped on the green goblin's head at this time, and the spikes on his rotating arm instantly inserted into the green goblin's eye sockets, and a green energy was drawn out. In just the blink of an eye, Wei Qingyi's armor was enveloped in a green source of light, almost becoming a light source. She is actually absorbing the source power. And at such a fast speed? Lin Qi was surprised. Although he had seen many weird awakening powers during this period, this was the first time he encountered this ability to quickly absorb source power. If used properly, the effects are surprisingly terrifying. In just a short moment, the body of this violent green demon completely dimmed. As the last trace of source power was extracted, all resistance disappeared without a trace. Even the tail wrapped around Gutong's body, and fell to the ground helplessly. The two of them then took back their awakening power and retreated. But Wei Qingyi's body was still full of energy and light, and even his armor turned green, like a huge light source. Gutong had already pulled out the green demon's genetic crystal, but this genetic crystal, which had absorbed most of its energy, had become dim and lost its 6th level value. But if used for research, it still has great uses. It's embarrassing. With my brute strength, I can only use this method. Gutong breathed a sigh of relief. He almost couldn't suppress the strange beast just now. Fortunately, his companions provided timely help, and he was able to completely subdue it. One force can defeat all methods, as long as you use the right method. There is no need for Lin Qi to ridicule this former defeated general. After all, among the awakened people who have made it this far, have they experienced big scenes and survived from crisis to the end step by step? The body of the strange beast was left outside, and someone would come in to deal with it. After the 6 people took a short rest, they headed deeper into the cave again. The interior of this cave is very spacious, and there are many branch roads, all of which are underground passages opened by source energy. But in the end, they all lead to one area. The fluctuation just now completely aroused the vigilance in the depths of the cave. Sure enough, the 6 people did not go far before they noticed a large amount of energy fluctuations being transmitted, and green light swarmed out. Those eyes were all mutant beasts, and each pair represented one. Although the number was not huge, the ones with the lowest level were all 5th level beings. In an instant, everyone was on alert, ready to attack at any time. Thunder! Duan Ruoyan shouted coldly, and a rich thunder light emitted from the armor. Rays of lightning shot out from his hands, forming a giant net and spreading out. The first few mutated beasts were instantly enveloped by lightning nets, and their bodies instantly collapsed to the ground. Wind shield. Dongfang Song was also not to be outdone. As the hurricane condensed in his hands, powerful wind currents quickly condensed around several people, forming an absolute vacuum defense. At one go, rush over. Chapter 3 10,500 meters long. Facing such a large number of 5th level mutant beasts, and beings with source power, even high-level awakened ones, like them, would find it difficult to resist. The only way is to find a way to break through the crisis, enter the depths of the cave, and find favorable terrain. Lin Qi didn't feel threatened. If he was allowed to take action, he could kill all these mutated beasts in an instant. But since they had used their methods, they simply wanted to see if there were any other changes first. The wind shield protected the 6 people, and they flew forward quickly. Green energy impacted one after another, but they were all blocked by the condensed wind wall. The spreading power of thunder and lightning just blocked the impact of these mutant beasts, allowing them to successfully break through the siege. It wasn't until we reached the depths of the cave and entered a narrow area that the wind pressure gradually dissipated. Gutong stood behind him, condensing a huge axe in his hand, and holding it on his chest. Wei Qingyi injected the absorbed source energy into the giant axe. The originally simple axe gradually emitted green source power light. With a slash, a ray of green light shot out and turned into a bolt of energy, directly splitting a mutated beast that rushed in half. But in front of them, there was an even more terrifying crisis. Little green bugs were seen emerging from the cracks in the rocks, gradually filling the entire cave with green. Even though Duan Ruoyan used all his strength to attack with lightning, there were still many fish that slipped through the net and continued to spread towards everyone. Let me do it. Lin Qi took a step forward. To deal with such a dense and weak existence, his mental power was simply unstoppable. Lin Qi didn't even need to activate the gene lock. Powerful mental fluctuations rippled out from his body, turning into ripples and spreading out. The nearest green beetle was instantly crushed to pieces by this invisible force. extending outward layer by layer. After the triple wave dispersed, all the insects in the perception were crushed into pieces, filling the cave with green fluorescence. His thoughts changed again, and the green fluorescence slowly condensed and turned into a huge ball of light emitting blue light, falling to the ground. This scene left several others stunned. You must know that when I first entered here, 2 Source Project soldiers were accidentally surrounded by such insects. Even the Source Project armor was eaten away, and no bones were left. Amazing. Dongfang Song couldn't help but sigh. This former teammate was becoming more and more mysterious. Duan Ruiyun carefully pulled Dongfang Song behind him, his face even more surprised. A private message sent a reminder. Didn't you realize that he didn't even unlock the gene lock? When the 2 of them attacked just now, they had already opened the gene lock to increase their strength. Compared to this, they were simply not on the same level. Realizing this situation, Dongfang Song was about to say something more, but saw that Lin Chi and Jin Na were already flying forward, so he had to quickly catch up. The hole at the rear has been blocked, and there is no need to worry about the mutated beasts rushing in a short time, which is enough for the 6 people to find the energy barrier. Continuing to go deeper again. Unknowingly, we have entered thousands of meters underground, and the cold breath from the upper level is completely gone. Coming! Seeing the familiar depth indicated on the armor, the 4 of them quickly became alert, because when approaching the energy barrier, they would encounter a more terrifying crisis. Sure enough, after the 6 people continued walking for a while, they came to an open space, and a green wall suddenly appeared in front of them, and it was still slowly moving. The 6 people fell down one after another, and were on guard. 7th level mutant beast? Why didn't you meet this guy last time you came here? There is a green wall in front of me, but the body of a huge mutant beast. This mutated beast was covered in scales, and the green fluorescence kept flashing, making every scale clearly visible. It had been squirming for a long time, but no change was seen. However, Lin Chi sensed the specific form of this mutated beast. It's a giant snake. It's 500 meters long. Underneath the entire snow-capped mountain lies an underground fault zone, with countless caves connected vertically and horizontally. Just enough for this 500-meter giant snake to crawl freely. Although there are some small passages, they are just enough for its body to pass through. Hearing that it was a giant snake 500 meters long, Duan Ruiyun and Wei Qingyi among the 6 people were obviously nervous, and even paused in breathing. In normal times, a small snake can cause a woman to scream. Although he is now a Source Project warrior and is immune to weak creatures, he still felt shocked when he heard that it was a giant snake of 500 meters. And they are creatures with powerful vitality like snakes. Commander Lin, what should we do? There was nothing they could do against this 7th level behemoth. And even with the help of the giant mecha at the base, they didn't necessarily have a chance of winning. What's more, mechas can't get into a place like this. Find a way to lure it here, and I'll fight it out. Hearing Lin Chi's words, even Jin Na was a little confused. How to defeat such a 500-meter long giant? And at this moment, the 6 people are already thousands of meters above the ground. What kind of power is needed to reach this level? Although she was confused, Jin Na quickly stepped forward, resisting the discomfort in her heart, and drew out her short knife to prepare for an attack. Lin Chi condensed the spear, turned the gun body over, and slowly formed a huge 3-hook at the handle of the gun. Between the gun handles, countless threads were intertwined to form a rope as thick as an arm. Dongfang Song suddenly realized something, with an incredible look in his eyes. Brother Lin, which trick do you want to use? He suddenly remembered the move that Lin Chi used when he flew directly to a big fish at Sanshan Reservoir. It's just that the big fish that flew up that time was only about 10,000 catties. It was definitely not on the same level as such a huge mutant snake. Snakes are considered things in the water, so they should be fishable. Lin Chi tried throwing the giant hook and felt that it was very handy, so he motioned for everyone to start. Jin Na had already arrived near the mutant giant snake first. Even if she didn't use her ability, she could block her own breath. It wasn't until she broke through the scales with a knife that she attracted the mutant giant snake's attention. In an instant, the cave trembled violently, and the giant snake squirmed wildly. The wall not far away was instantly broken, and a giant snake with 2 horns rushed out. The huge snake head was as thick as a tunnel. Before it even got close, I felt a smelly impact, and its green eyes exuded an evil light. The snake's head was slightly raised, and 2 green rays of light spurted out from its eyes. Like lights, but they contained a powerful energy impact. Wei Qingyi stepped forward and stretched out his hands to resist. The same green light condensed and turned into a barrier in front of him. The green light on her body dissipated rapidly, visible to the naked eye, and was completely offset by this energy. Taking advantage of this opportunity, Lin Chi swung his spear, threw the 3 hooks into the giant snake's mouth, and then held the gun with his backhand. Yu Long throws himself into the world and destroys the world. Let's go! The spear shot out of the air, and the rope was instantly stretched. The mutant giant python didn't realize anything at all. It only felt its head shake, and it was instantly pulled out of the cave. Its 500-meter-long body kept flying out, almost in the blink of an eye. The green light belt flew past the eyes of the 6 people and disappeared into the cave. Chapter 311 Life in the Universe. The other 5 people were stunned for a long time before they realized that what just flew out was really the 500-meter-long giant python. You get it out? Can the people outside deal with it? Jin Na asked in a low voice. This 7th-level giant python is comparable to the 8th-level mutant beasts outside. It can be said to be the most terrifying existence I have ever seen. With the fighting power of those outside, I am afraid it will be enough. They can always delay for some time. If not, there will be support from Azure. After solving the problem of the mutated giant python, there was an energy barrier hiding the spaceship behind them. Everyone took this opportunity to quickly approach, and finally stopped in front of a green barrier. We have tried it before. The energy contained in this barrier is too huge. Xingyi cannot absorb it at all. And with our current attack, we cannot break it. Dongfang Song looked at the solid barrier in front of him with a look of helplessness. He knew that there might be a huge secret hidden behind it, but there was no way to explore it. This was the most helpless thing. It is indeed an energy intensity that I have never experienced before. I am afraid that even a nuclear bomb cannot explode it. Lin Chi sensed that the rich energy seemed to be constructed from a specific energy sequence, which was completely different from the energy barrier technology he had mastered. Even the technology on board our own spaceship is very different. So he condensed a spear again and thrust it out. The originally indestructible spear. After the illusory spear head penetrated the barrier, the remaining spear body melted directly, and was reduced to ashes by the powerful energy barrier. Seeing this scene, several people were a little moved. If they collided directly, I am afraid that the Source Project armor would not be able to withstand it. This energy seems to be stronger than before. Dongfang Song's face changed slightly. The last time they explored, it was not as intense, which meant that the difficulty of entering had increased again. They put all their hopes on Lin Chi, wondering how this strongest person could break through this barrier. Lin Chi studied for a while, and asked Wei Lan to record the operation of this energy barrier, according to his own strength. If he attacked with all his strength, he might have a chance to break this barrier, but that would undoubtedly cause unimaginable damage, and even the entire cave would collapse. And then the gains would outweigh the losses. Jin Na, come and see if you can get through. Being able to enter quietly, without causing any destruction is naturally the most suitable. This is why Lin Chi brought Jin Na here. Jin Na had long been eager to give it a try. Ever since she saw the situation here, she understood what Lin Chi was thinking. She immediately jumped forward, and an illusory light gradually appeared on her body. After escaping into a different dimension, even the most powerful energy could not affect her. She easily passed through the barrier and disappeared in front of everyone. In the 6-person team, Jin Na's signal was cut off instantly, which surprised several people. Fortunately, this situation did not last long. Just a moment later, Jin Na's figure appeared in front of everyone again. What's in there? Because of the information shielding, Lin Chi could not see inside through Jin Na's field of vision. Alien base. There's an alien base inside. There was a hint of excitement in Jin Na's tone. Although she only took a quick glance at the area behind the energy barrier, she was shocked. Behind this energy barrier, there is a special space, as vast as the underground world, and a huge base is in it. But as soon as she entered, she was discovered by the detection method inside. Fortunately, there was the power of space to block her, and she escaped. I originally thought it was just a spaceship, but I didn't expect it to have a base. It seems that we have found a big fish. There must be living aliens in an alien base, regardless of the opponent's strength. If allowed to develop, it will definitely pose a threat to mankind. Even humans don't know that these aliens are suitable to come to Blue Star. Take us in and have a look. Now that he was here, Lin Chi didn't intend to return empty-handed. So he pulled Jin Na and asked her to cast her power over everyone. As the illusory space fluctuation spread out, the 6 people were wrapped in it, and they gradually disappeared into the void. The next second, The bodies of the 6 people passed through the energy barrier and entered another space. Behind the barrier, there is a bright world that is completely different from the underground space just one step away from the outside world. There are even white clouds floating in the bright sky, and the ground is covered with vegetation. Some giant trees are even hundreds of meters tall, surrounded by winding rivers. A majestic base appears on a small island. But as soon as the 6 people appeared, they were surrounded by a group of mutated creatures. Among these mutated creatures, there were several aliens in human form, but they were wearing heavy armor, and their appearance could not be seen clearly. Catch these blue stars. A deep voice came from the mouth of one of the leading aliens, who seemed to be very curious about the blue star people who could break in. When it gave the order, the surrounding mutant beasts immediately surrounded it, and even small combat mechas were flying in a steady stream from a distance. Quick victory. The few people quickly dispersed. Powerful auras emitted, and the power of the gene lock was activated at the same time. Gu Tong even transformed into a 10-meter-tall giant, leaping up with a giant axe in his hand. The powerful impact hit the ground, and the spreading shock waves scattered all the surrounding mutant beasts. The others were not to be outdone, especially the cooperation of Dongfang Song and Duan Ruiyun. The wind and thunder attacks they launched instantly covered the surrounding area, forming a thundercloud zone. Lin Chi condensed a long knife in his hand, just enough to use the power of thunder and lightning to maximize his attack. Inside the base in the center of the island in the distance, a figure glowing with golden light slowly stood up and looked at the picture projected in front of it with interest. I didn't expect that there would be such a perfect human body in the universe. In such a short period of time, the genetic strength could be developed to this extent. It watched the battle between the 6 people as if it were a toy, and was particularly curious about the attacks being unleashed. As the mutant beasts were killed one by one, green blood seeped into the ground and gradually dyed the ground red. However, all the humanoid figures left the vicinity and only watched from the sidelines. Lin Chi gradually realized something was wrong and took the initiative to stop and look into the distance. A feeling of being spied upon came over him, making him feel particularly awkward. This feeling is as if I had put evolutionary bugs in bottles and studied their habits. Is that there? What are you looking at? Anger rose in his heart, and he quickly condensed a bow and arrow in his hand, aiming at the location of the base. The technology that leads mankind, as well as its powerful strength, and even the current experiences of mankind are all caused by these cosmic beings who arrived at Blue Star. In their eyes, the humans on this planet are just their experiments, as small as bugs. But they don't know that when insects reach a certain strength, they can destroy the world. Chapter 312 Golden Race. Arrows flew out. It turned into a stream of light and shot towards the base. However, even if these aliens were aware of this attack, they did not take it seriously. How could a mere cold weapon break down their proud defense methods? Spiral arrow. Yulong throws the universe and destroys it. Opens the gate of heaven with one shot. An arrow was shot, and the rotating arrow exploded with powerful attack power, instantly stirring the surrounding space. It turned into a whirlwind dragon and roared out. But when the attack reached the sky above the base, it was blocked by an invisible barrier and stopped in the void. But the arrow is still spinning rapidly, and the power of the explosion is still not reduced by half. At this moment, the alarms inside the base are constantly sounding, and the data indicating the strength of the energy barrier is continuously decreasing. When it reaches the critical point, the illusory barrier explodes. Boom! There was a huge earthquake, and a big hole was instantly blasted out of the seemingly indestructible base, and energy poured out. The aliens around them all looked at the scene in front of them in horror, unable to believe that their proud defense could be broken so easily. You must know that the energy defense of their base can withstand the impact of small meteorites and the pulse cannon of space battleships of the same level. At this moment, figures are constantly flying out of the base. The most special ones are those figures with golden light all over their bodies. They have almost the same characteristics as humans, but the color of their bodies is different. Lasers also extended around the base, locking on everyone. No! Get out of here! The feeling of being locked made Lin Chi instantly feel a fatal sense of crisis. He immediately gave instructions quickly and reached out to hold Jean Na. The energy of another dimension once again enveloped the 6 people, and in the next second a stream of green light completely enveloped the location of the 6 people, and even the ground sank hundreds of meters deep. This high concentration source attack only destroys everything around it instantly, leaving not even a trace. When the 6 people appeared from the void again, they had passed through the energy barrier and reached the outside world. although there was no danger at all. The oppressive feeling of death has always enveloped everyone's hearts. It's so terrifying. Even though we are separated by a layer of space, we can feel the power of that energy. If we were hit, we might really die inside. Jean Na could feel the impact of that energy most intuitively. If she hadn't been there, I couldn't imagine who could have taken on such an attack. Have you noticed the golden figure flying out of the base? Lin Chi looked thoughtfully at the energy barrier in front of him. With such a powerful weapon, these cosmic beings have been hiding in it, as if they were worried about something. The genetic fluctuations emitted by the golden figure are very similar to humans, but they are also fundamentally different. Their body shape looks similar to ours. Are alien life forms the same as ours? Duan Ruoyun looked in disbelief. She had clearly seen the figure flying out of the base just now. If that's the case, the origin of human beings may be traced back to the universe. Not necessarily. Maybe the alien creatures merged with human genes and took on human form. Wei Qingyi rarely spoke and always maintained an attitude of not wanting to believe it. At this moment, the energy barrier in front of him suddenly became illusory, and one part of it even felt distorted. A figure walked out of the barrier and appeared in front of everyone. It was the golden figure they had just seen, which appeared at close range at this moment, which shocked everyone again. The aliens who appeared in front of them were almost the same as humans, except that they were exuding golden light, and even their skin was golden. The armor they wore emitted special energy fluctuations, and the people who were frightened by their own power did not dare to move around. It's an alien. And it's a woman. Interesting. I didn't expect that a small planet could have such a successful experimental body. It seems that your genes are very suitable for evolutionary conditions. The golden woman had slender blonde hair, squirming slowly under the influence of energy. Looking at Lin Chi and Jean Na thoughtfully, she could tell the genetic strength of several people at a glance. And the most perfect among them were Lin Chi and Jean Na. As for the others, in her opinion, they were just failures. Experimental subject? Lin Chi frowned. Although Bai Su had already made this conjecture before, it still felt extremely ironic to hear such words from their mouths. The human beings who have lived on the blue star for countless thousands of years are actually just experimental subjects. Yes. Why do you think there are so many species on a small planet? They are just experimental subjects we put in. They have continuously evolved over the long years to complete the accumulation of genetic changes. Now is the time to harvest. She didn't mind telling the truth. After all, the strongest genetic evolution of humans so far was only at the 5th level, and would not pose much of a threat to them at all. As for the attack that broke the energy barrier just now, in her opinion, this human being must have mastered some incredible means. She only needs to be a little on guard. This method will not threaten her at all. Everyone didn't know what to say for a while, and they were still immersed in this shock and had not recovered. Especially when he learned that he was just an experimental subject. The feeling of confusion instantly made people lose all hope for the future. What about the experimental subjects? We have lived on Blue Star for countless years, and have become the masters of this planet. I still understand the principle of survival of the strong. If I am stronger than you, can it be reversed? Lin Chi drew his bow and arrow, aimed at the opponent at close range, and locked onto it with his mental power. Good abilities. Rare mental power. Even the elites among us rarely awaken. It seems that free integration and growth still have some merits. The golden woman looked at Lin Chi with praise. Although this mental power was powerful, it could not affect her. What she cared about most at the moment was Jean Na's power of different dimensions. This was an even rarer ability. And even she was amazed. I need you to become my servants, and then take control of this planet. Then I will give you a broader vision, and the right to deal with others at will. How about it? The golden woman didn't care about the hostility of several people, but instead wanted to recruit them. After mastering the history of human development, they also learned from it the way of human survival. This situation will occur in every era of change, and there will definitely be people who are willing. But facing this kind of inquiry, the 5 of them all looked at Lin Chi, pinning almost all their hopes on Lin Chi. Facing such a strong man, they even lost the courage to resist. Lin Chi put down his bow and arrow, integrated the material into the armor, and then freed his right hand. You guys go back a little bit, and remember to turn on the video. Lin Chi felt that it was necessary to let these superior alien beings see the way humans greet each other. Big Pussy Kabuto. With a slap. The golden woman, who was still waiting for a few people's replies, suddenly felt that her body was out of control, and was pulled directly in front of Lin Chi. There was a crisp sound, and a slap was thrown on the golden cheek, sending the proud woman flying more than 10 meters away. Quickly retreat. After a slap in the face, Lin Chi decisively retreated. Only then did the others react and flee. Chapter 313 Killing the Giant Snake. The 6 people had not run far when a terrifying aura came from behind. So oppressive that it even made them unstable. But when this aura came, Lin Chi turned around again and slapped him away. Snapped. There was another crisp sound. The collision of the palm and the face. A crisp sound. The golden woman was whipped away again. And the condensed pressure on her body disappeared instantly. And she hit the wall. 2 seconds of hard control once again gave 6 people time to escape. Speaking of which, we have completely offended this alien. When Dongfang Song retreated, he was still thinking of joking. After seeing the powerful alien being repeatedly ravaged by Lin Chi, the fear in his heart disappeared without even realizing it. The aliens are not that good either. They are not Brother Lin's enemies at all. What? Do you still want to be friends with her? Lin Chi couldn't help but joke. And when he noticed the aura fluctuations behind him, he turned around and slapped him again. Forget it. I don't like species isolation. The golden woman's figure and appearance have reached the most perfect expression of her genes. There are only some abnormalities in her skin and hair. But she is still an alien. Only Gu Tong watched the golden woman being whipped away, with bad memories ringing in his mind. Just a moment later, everyone flew out of the cave and left the underground space. The area near the snow-capped mountains has long been destroyed into ruins. And even the surrounding mountains have been ravaged into flat ground. The warships all took off and bombarded the 500-meter-long giant python. It's just that all kinds of attacks can't hurt this mutated beast whose level is comparable to the 8th level. If it weren't for the constant suppression of spaceship attacks, everyone would have been in desperate situation. It's not like there's no gain. At least there's a big guy. Lin Chi motioned for several people to come forward to help, while he stayed near the cave to prevent the alien from leaving the cave at any time. Although Baido's attack was single and not very lethal, its pure suppressive power made Lin Chi almost invincible against a single opponent. It seemed that she was a little stunned by the beating. The golden woman did not continue to chase her out, but the aura emanating from the depths of the cave became more and more terrifying. Lin Chi gathered his bow and arrow, locked onto the giant python in the distance, and shot an arrow at it, getting a small assist. Just a moment later, several more giant battleships flew up, with 2 mecha giants hanging on them, falling from high altitude. This is a mecha giant developed by the Beijing Security Zone and the 4 major bases. And it is the updated 2nd generation. The materials on its body have been replaced with 7th level ones. And its strength is even better than before. As soon as the 2 mecha giants appeared, they rushed towards the giant python. And the 2 sides immediately fell into a fight. Although the giant python has a body length of 500 meters, sometimes its body is too long, which is a burden. It cannot pay attention to its tail. And the area that can withstand attacks is increased several times. Although the energy attack spewed out of its mouth was extremely powerful, the 2 giant mechas didn't give it a chance to use it at all. And every time it opens its mouth, an arrow will fly towards it, detonating the energy condensed in its mouth and injuring itself instead. In addition to the 6 people present, there were also many top-notch combat forces, who once suppressed the 7th order giant python and was unable to fight back. But it is still somewhat difficult to kill it completely. Is this guy afraid to come out? Lin Chi stood near the cave, using his mental power to search for the golden woman's aura. It was only after exploring the depths of the cave that the wave was discovered. Don't you dare come out? The aura stayed in the cave and no longer extended outward, as if it was afraid of Lin Chi's strange ability. After receiving more than a dozen slaps in a row, this alien life was completely stunned. With her superb wisdom, she could not figure out what kind of power she encountered. Shall we blow up this cave? Dongfang Song took advantage of the gap and came to Lin Chi to ask. His ability caused minimal damage to the giant python, almost like scraping, with no effect at all. Rather than wasting strength, it is better to be vigilant here. Do you think blowing up can stop them? Lin Chi asked back. Everyone had also seen the strength of the golden woman just now. She only sensed that the genetic power of the aura reached the 9th level at the lowest level, which was simply not something that humans at this stage could handle. I just don't know why. But they are hiding underground and can't come out. Otherwise mankind would have been destroyed long ago. Well, we can't leave such a big crisis here. Dongfang Song's mind came back to the idea of bombing with nuclear bombs, which should be able to destroy the underground base. They have not dared to come out for such a long time. There must be something on the landmark that makes them afraid, rather than actively provoking it. It is better to wait and see what happens and increase their strength in the shortest possible time. Lin Chi can easily deal with an opponent who is stronger than him. But if the number is large, it will be difficult to deal with. I don't know what will happen if this skill is advanced again. I hope it's as you said. Dongfang Song hopes so. After all, it is really difficult for human beings to withstand the attacks of alien creatures now. Let's get rid of that giant python first. Without any worries, Lin Chi was able to free his hands, quickly flew over the mutant python, condensed a big gun, and shot down the 7 inches of the mutant python. The huge gun shadow almost occupied the python's neck. The illusory gun shadow broke through the scales of the skin and blasted the mass of flesh into pieces. Just this blow caused the giant python to suffer severe injuries. Its body squirmed and rolled violently, and it crashed into the mountains one after another. The shrill scream shook the sky. Blood was constantly sprayed from the wound, and green energy spurted out from the python's mouth, shooting back and forth in the sky. Everyone quickly avoided this violent energy impact, just waiting for the giant python to consume all its power before finding a way to kill it. As expected of Commander Lin, we tried so hard but didn't hurt it much. You just made a move and severely injured the giant python. Several figures flew over in the sky. They seemed to be several strong men in the safe zone of the capital. The 2 mechas waited for the giant python's attack to slow down, and quickly attacked the wound. One of them restrained the giant python's tail and firmly fixed it on the ground. The warships in the air took the opportunity to attack from all directions, shrouded in countless artillery fire. The surrounding ground was completely blown up. This all-round attack completely defeated the mutated giant python's body, and even the deep genes showed signs of collapse. When the artillery fire stopped completely, the 500-meter-long giant python was blown into 3 pieces, and the entire mountain range was dyed green with blood. Even most of the body has exposed snake bones, and the snake meat has been burned black by the bombardment. This saves points. Each of our 3 forces will have 1 share. Chapter 314 Human Distant Relatives. Mutated beasts created by alien creatures still have research value. Lin Chi directly asked the spacecraft to turn on the guidance light and retract the snake's head. Seeing that the largest section had been taken away, people from the other 4 bases and the capital safety zone didn't say much. After all, without Lin Chi's intervention, they wouldn't have been able to kill the giant python so quickly. And the crisis in the underground cave is far more important than this. After learning about the alien base in the underground space from Dongfang Song and Gu Tong, the 2 major forces had already begun research and sealed off the entire surrounding area for hundreds of miles. Commander Lin, I may have to trouble you for a while, until we figure out the intentions of these alien beings. We have to stay here. I hope you can stay and help. Without Lin Chi here, they really had no confidence at all. Okay. I'm also trying to figure out the purpose of these aliens, but I don't like someone restricting my actions. Lin Chi was also very interested in exploring the secrets of aliens, especially since the strength of these aliens far exceeded the limits of current humans. If they are not stopped and allowed to come out, even if the entire Blue Star Source Project fighters unite, they will not be their opponent. A small base was quickly established around the snow-capped mountains, and aircraft suspended in the sky were always paying attention to the situation near the cave. As long as there was a slight energy fluctuation, everyone would be alert. In the spaceship, Lin Chi sensed the situation deep in the cave. At this moment, all the mutant beasts returned to the energy barrier, and the entire cave fell into a state of complete silence. If there hadn't been a fierce battle just now, I wouldn't have thought that there would be something so terrifying. Jean Na, we still have to go in. We must find out the secret of those alien creatures coming here. Lin Chi slowly opened his eyes. If he wanted to enter the energy barrier, he would have to rely on Jean Na's ability. But he didn't know how long Jean Na could hold on now. If it's just the 2 of us, I can stay in the different dimension for at least an hour. Last time was 6 people. Jean Na did not hide the space for too long in order to preserve her strength. And there was no order from Lin Chi. So why bother so hard? But now if there are only 2 people, they can use it without reservation. The 2 discussed countermeasures, recorded the alien base they had seen before using holographic projection, and formulated the most suitable infiltration route. After coming out of the spaceship, Jean Na attached the extra-dimensional space ability to the 2 of them, and quickly fell to the ground. Entering the mountain and piercing his body, he easily entered the cave without causing any alertness from others, and continued to dive deeper. The 2 of them came to the energy barrier unobstructed, took a short rest, and waited until their abilities returned to perfect condition before starting to infiltrate again. After passing through the barrier, what you can see is still the same space as before, But the base that was attacked by Lin Chi has now returned to its original state. In this space, there are many special mutant beasts. Some flying in the sky, swimming in the water, and running on the ground. However, they are all very docile at the moment and coexist peacefully. Stitch Monster? A giant bull-headed turtle body swims slowly in the water, and a giant bird flies in the sky. But if you look closely, you can see that the bird's upper body has a round head with clear facial features. The two quickly flew over these strange mutant beasts and landed on top of the base. Although this base has stronger energy defense, once the space level is involved, any defense will have no effect. After successfully entering the base, the two became even more cautious. Azure, can you copy their information? After all, they are alien creatures, and the information data is completely different from human habits. However, Wei Lan has integrated the data of another spacecraft after all, and the information about these alien creatures should be able to be analyzed. Sir, the civilization of this race is different from the previously captured cosmic civilization. However, the two have recorded data to compare with each other and can be copied. After receiving the reply, the two men appeared in a hidden room. A stream of information extended from Lin Chi's armor and was connected to the base's control system. There was not enough time, so Lin Chi could only pray that Wei Lan would not be discovered so soon. However, just after he was lucky, warning sounds came from the entire base. Jean Na, you hide in another dimension first. I should be able to resist for a while. If Lin Chi also hides in another dimensional space, he will undoubtedly disconnect Wei Lan, in which case all his previous efforts will be in vain. Therefore, we can only give it a try and see how far our own strength is compared with these golden alien life forms. After letting Jean Na hide, Lin Chi slowly gathered his spear and got ready to go. The material of this base is extremely special, and ordinary attacks cannot even leave a trace. And it can also absorb energy. With Lin Chi's methods, only the illusory spearhead condensed into a spear could cause damage. After a moment, Lin Chi felt that he was locked by several mental waves, and the pressure from each wave was very powerful. So he rose into the air and stood above the base. The familiar golden figure slowly fell in front of him. Looking at Lin Chi seriously, humanity, there was a hint of resentment in the golden woman's tone. But she always kept a certain distance from Lin Chi, as if she was afraid. Without her order, the surrounding golden aliens did not dare to attack. Life from the universe. What is your purpose in coming to our planet? Seeing this scene, Lin Chi knew that he should be able to delay some time. So he simply started talking. I think you have misunderstood. This planet is not yours. This is our planet, and we put the humans on this planet here, the golden woman explained. But it shocked Lin Chi. If what she said is true, are humans really the test subjects of alien creatures? When our ancestors discovered this planet, they had already named it and occupied it, and spent a lot of time adjusting the environment of the planet. The golden woman waved her hand to condense a curtain of light, and it was the earliest blue star pattern on it. Countless eras passed quickly, and finally a mysterious spaceship appeared and landed on the blue star. At that time, life had been born on the blue star, and it had gone through several reincarnations, including the age of dinosaurs, the Ice Age, the Magma Age, etc. Only creatures like humans are alien species, and they continue to integrate the genetic characteristics of blue star creatures and slowly survive. Tens of thousands of years of civilizational evolution have transformed human beings into what they are now. Human beings, you were created by us. We are the creators in your mouth. You should obey our orders unconditionally. The golden woman's flurry of tongue twisters confused Lin Chi. No. 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 It shouldn't be understood this way. The way I understand it, you should have lost your home and came to seek refuge with your relatives. Right? Your home was destroyed by other alien beings, and you only thought that you once had a distant relative. That's why you came to ask for help. Right? At this time, Lin Chi had received the information from Azure Cracking and roughly understood what happened to these alien beings. Chapter 315 Cooperation. The universe is not so peaceful. The alien life of this golden race was once a relatively powerful existence in the universe. At its peak, this alien civilization ruled a galaxy and transported a large amount of life to all parts of the universe to cultivate future generations. But then it unexpectedly declined, and even the main planet became increasingly scarce. So it could only continue to migrate in search of a suitable living environment. The movable fleet was attacked by hostile forces, and almost all were wiped out. Only a few were left to jump through space and find the coordinates of Blue Star. They discovered that humans are on this planet. But because their genes are blocked, they have always been quite weak. So they launched a genetic evolution plan to allow life on the entire planet to begin to evolve. After learning this information, Lin Chi already had a way to deal with it. How do you know? The golden woman looked surprised. This was related to the secret of their race. How could a blue star human understand it so clearly? You don't dare to step out of this base. And you don't even dare to emit your own information fluctuations. You may be afraid that other life forms in the universe will detect the information fluctuations. Nowadays, there are several unknown spaceships on the blue star. In addition to the golden race, there should be other cosmic forces, all of which seem to be accumulating strength and regaining their strength. The golden woman looked at Lin Chi with complicated eyes. She didn't expect that the other party knew them so well. They even know what they are afraid of. Who are you? It's impossible for humans to know us so well. For a moment, the golden woman felt as if she was facing a formidable enemy. And she even wondered whether the human beings in front of her were sent by beings from other universes. Other humans may not understand you, but I am different. After learning that there was only a small base left to survive in the universe, Lin Chi came up with the idea of eating this base. They master the technology of genetic evolution and the knowledge passed down for countless years, which is the most precious wealth. But facing these golden aliens, Lin Chi still maintained a certain degree of vigilance. Likewise, the people on the other side, especially the golden woman, were obviously quite wary of Lin Chi. After all, he had been slapped several times before, and he didn't even have a chance to fight back. We are the most perfect genetically cultivated life, but you are just freely cultivated experimental subjects. How can you compare with us? As if she was unwilling to be afraid of the human beings in front of her, the golden woman lowered her voice, with a faint sense of anger. Sensing that something was wrong in the atmosphere, Lin Chi freed his right hand and slapped him. Snapped. The crisp sound shocked everyone, and they saw the golden woman flying backwards and hitting the wall hard. Strength. If you are strong, it is normal for this planet to be enslaved by you. But the current situation is that you alien beings are dependent on others. So you should understand your situation. After getting hold of these alien lifeforms, Lin Chi became unscrupulous, fall from the air, and walk straight forward. As his footsteps moved, those who surrounded him subconsciously took a few steps back. So what about the life in the universe? Facing the strong will still cause fear. I'll give you two choices. One is to be wiped out by humans and completely lose your inheritance. The other is to cooperate with me. I will let you have a place on Blue Star. At least you don't have to hide underground and never see the light of day. How about that? At this time, Lin Chi knew that he could not continue to press. Otherwise, he might not be able to benefit from the opponent's defeat. Do you think you can eliminate us? I am at the 9th level of genetic evolution. After the golden woman recovered, her whole body was exuding a rich golden light, and she rushed directly towards Lin Chi. Her golden source power is even more intimidating than Bai Su's red source power, and even has a noble aura. But if you deserve to be beaten, you still have to be beaten. The faster someone rushes over, the faster he rolls away. Hitting the wall again finally silenced her. Impossible. How is it possible? Even though he had activated the 9th level of genetic power, and even activated the full power source power, he still could not withstand this blow. It seemed that he had been seen through, and there was no cover in the eyes of the other party. I can completely destroy your little base by myself, and even completely control it. At this time, Wei Lan had invaded the opponent's control system. As Lin Chi's words fell, the entire base began to tremble violently. I saw the entire island rising slowly, and when it flew out of the water, it turned out to be a huge starship. This starship is the vehicle used by these cosmic beings when they evacuate their home planet. It is also the last hope of their civilization. Even the smart butler of the starship is asleep. It seems that your opponent is very powerful. Wei Lan has not encountered strong resistance from beginning to end. There were originally intelligent life on this starship, but the dominant consciousness has been damaged, leaving only the most basic control and operation methods. Therefore, there was no resistance at all, and he was completely controlled by Wei Lan. Under the control of Wei Lan, all the weapons on the starship were activated, locking on to the alien beings wearing golden armor present, especially the strongest golden woman. Moreover, Lin Chi also closed the energy shield of the base, emitting a special wave to attract the mutant beasts outside. Stop! Don't activate the starship. It would be fine if the information and data could not be transmitted in this closed space. But if the energy barrier outside was closed, Their information and data would soon be noticed by other beings in the universe. At that time, only this little seed will be left. Once the position is locked, there will be no chance to recover it. It seems you are still afraid. How are you? How have you considered it? Knowing what the other party was afraid of made Lin Chi more confident. What do you want? The golden woman felt ridiculous. As if the other party was the orthodox of this race. And she didn't even have any room for maneuver. I want the star map of the universe and all the rights of our species. After learning that there was life in the universe, Lin Chi knew that one day he would step out of the blue star and enter the vast universe. In this case, you must prepare in advance and learn more about the universe. I originally thought that humans on Blue Star were the tiniest existences in the universe, even the lowest civilization. But I never expected that human beings would have distant relatives in the universe. It's just that this distant relative has only a few clan members left in desolation, and they are almost extinct. In return, I will help you deal with our common enemy. After all, they are beings with the same bloodline, so they will be closer to them than other alien life forms. Chapter 316 Mechanical Life Form. In the entire underground base, there were only 5 golden races left, and the others were experimental subjects cloned using stored genes and blue star organisms. Those dozen golden warriors used human genes, and their strength was not weak. The strongest ones had reached the level of 7th level gene lock. Golden women have the highest genetic strength and hold a very high status in their race, similar to ancient royal members. On the other hand, there are 4 other guys with pure blood, whose strength is mediocre but rich in knowledge. The last time they escaped in the universe and passed through a rift in time and space, they were hit by turbulence and suffered heavy casualties. Even now, they have not recovered their strength, having lost control of the base. The cosmic beings of these golden races no longer have anything to rely on, and can only choose to cooperate with Lin Chi. Jean Na walked out of the void and stood guard next to Lin Chi. Although she also understood the situation of these alien lifeforms, she was still very worried. After all, the existence of aliens has been full of mystery in human hearts since childhood, and they are inherently fearful. After detailed understanding, Lin Chi roughly understood what happened to these golden races. When migrating in the universe, they encountered a large number of cosmic beings. Although they suffered heavy casualties, they also destroyed most of the opponent's fleet. Moreover, when passing through the rift in time and space, a large number of fleets were torn into pieces, and those fragments appeared in the blue sky, near the star. It finally fell on the planet due to the gravity of the blue star. This is also the reason why a large amount of alien technology appeared on the blue star. After the fragments and spacecraft were discovered, they were reused. Speaking of which, you are really unlucky to have so many opponents. In the center of the base, Lin Chi sat on the console and looked at the data recorded by the starship. Those strange races of cosmic beings had data backups, and they were all very powerful. According to the comparison of gene strength, the 9th level of gene strength is almost the limit that ordinary life forms can reach. When you break through the 9th level, you will achieve a special qualitative change and enter a higher level of life. It's just that few people can reach this level. The universe is already in chaos. Our race occupies a galaxy and can suppress the surrounding snoopers when it is strong. But since it began to weaken, it has been invaded by many races, and in the end it accelerated the rate of destruction. Since the Golden Woman came to Blue Star, she gave herself a new name, named after Jean, and called herself Jean Ling. The original plan was to accumulate enough strength and recruit some of the best among humans in an attempt to make a comeback. But before even the most basic recovery was completed, the outside world noticed it. However, they also learned about the history of this planet, and were especially interested in the thousands of years of experience of the Central Asian Federation, and designated it as a backup civilization that the mainstream needs to refer to for data information and knowledge conversion. Of course, this civilization is the only one in the entire Blue Star that can comprehensively summarize the universe. The limitations of the other civilizations are really too great. For example, if the language of the North American Federation is translated and compared with unknown substances in the universe, the new vocabulary created will reach an unimaginable length. After understanding this information, Lin Chi also learned that there were other cosmic life forms on the Blue Star. They all survived the war, but their conditions were even worse than Jean Ling's. After obtaining a special detection device from the Jean Ling race, Lin Chi took Jean Na out of the underground space and gave Jean Ling an order. Starships have the ability to fly into the sky and escape from the Earth. They can fly in the universe and move slowly underground. Although he is deep underground in the northernmost region of the Federation, he can still travel underground to the Central Plains Security Zone. It just takes some time. In this way, Lin Chi could transfer all these trophies to his own hands silently. The outside world is still heavily guarded. The Beijing Security Zone and the 4 major bases even dispatched a large number of combat teams, stationed a camp nearby, and began to clean up the surrounding mutated creatures. They planned to work together to build a small shelter here to deal with underground alien bases for a long time. But they didn't know that this base had begun to slowly move. Lin Chi stayed nearby for a few days, and after making sure that they did not continue to explore the underground base, he controlled the spacecraft to leave the mountains and return to the Central Plains Safety Zone. Lin Chi had to spend a lot of time researching the technology of an entire civilization he obtained from Jean Ling. Even with current human methods, it would take him no telling how long it would take to perfectly reproduce it. But a sense of crisis also enveloped Lin Chi. After all, what he had to face next was a mysterious alien creature. The detector shows that there are now 3 bases established by aliens on Blue Star. These all exist openly, and have even reached a certain scale. There may be some like the Golden Spirit, dormant underground, shielded from outside detection. It took nearly a month for the starship to shuttle from the northern mountains to the bottom of the Central Plains Safety Zone and re-establish a base. The original energy defense means were also installed in the center of the safe zone, giving the greatest defense means. In the new year, mutant beasts have resurrected. In the second stage of Zerg evolution, both strength and quantity have increased greatly. But the improvement of human strength is also obvious to all. More and more awakened people join the battle. Together, they continue to hunt mutant creatures and enhance their own strength. There are now hundreds of Project Source fighters in the safe zone. Although it is now difficult to find the source of the virus, Lin Chi got the method to make the source of the virus from Jean Ling's starship. It is very likely that in the future, every awakened person will have his own source project armor, giving all mankind a thick layer of armor. The spaceship slowly lifted off and headed towards the sea. This was the closest alien base to the Federation, and it was on an island in the sea. Without human interference, the development of this base has reached a good scale, and a huge steel army has been built. This cosmic life is different from ordinary carbon-based life. Strictly speaking, it is a mechanical life form, similar to the Transformers-like existence in Lin Chi's memory. It's just that the birth of this kind of intelligent life is very strict and requires extremely powerful energy to create a mechanical life form. The spacecraft arrived over the island. The island, which was originally home to hundreds of thousands of humans, completely became a deserted place. There was not even a trace of life fluctuations on the island. Several giant steel beasts were lingering on the edge of the island, and strange metal birds in the sky were constantly flying and patrolling. Chapter 317, The Collision of Civilizations. This is it. If it were before, when Lin Chi encountered this kind of mechanical life form, he would even think that it was a new technology researched by some federation. But now that we have a clear target, we can prepare in advance to attack first. Azure, how can we destroy this island as quickly as possible? The area of this island is not small. Even if it is bombed with nuclear bombs, it will not be fully covered. And these mechanical life forms also have energy defense methods to withstand the shock wave. Even those steel beings have a certain resistance to radiation. As long as they are not hit in the central area, they cannot be killed at all. Sir, unless you use the starship-shaped Star Destroyer cannon or the Ion Storm. Wei Lan also made arrangements for the mechanical life. But now it is obvious that he cannot come up with this kind of attack method. Starships don't have enough energy to strike at long distances, and weapons like ion storms are also difficult to make. In the spaceship, Lin Chi sighed. This would only slowly destroy the island's base. Even a 7th-level nuclear fusion energy bomb is not powerful enough to destroy everything. Only by destroying the mechanical life that dominates this base can it be destroyed once and for all. But how could a mechanical race that had been inherited for countless thousands of years be destroyed so easily? As long as the core is not destroyed, they can quickly establish their own base in the ruins and thus revive and regenerate. After much thought, Lin Chi decided to explore the reality of this mechanical life base. Then the strongest physical attack of the spaceship was launched. As the hatch opened, a giant gun with a diameter of 10 meters slowly fell from it. Fu Long Xiang Tianpa opened the heaven gate with one shot. The giant gun falling from the sky passed through the atmosphere, bursting out with bright sparks, spinning and condensing a whirlwind of flames, and fell towards the center of the island. The clouds in the sky were instantly rolled into a vortex, causing the wind and clouds to fall. Not long after this attack appeared, it was noticed by the mechanical life on the island. Suddenly, the roar of the machinery continued, and flying giant beasts soared into the sky. Those giant mechanical birds screamed and soared into the sky, continuously firing various weapon attacks, covering the entire sky like brilliant fireworks. However, the increasingly brilliant attacks were unable to defeat the giant spear made from the 7th level mammoth tusk, and could not even block the slightest impact. Even the energy after the explosion was condensed around by the rotating giant gun, forming an even more terrifying energy ring. Boom! The giant gun landed, and the center of the island collapsed instantly, with the giant gun as the center. An uproar spread to all directions. This attack completely triggered the movement of the crust below the island, and the shock waves even caused cracks to appear on the entire island. And they continue to expand. Giant beasts are active on the island, flying from the ground or leaping into the sky to avoid the impact. But what is even more terrifying is that from the cracked ground, terrifying steel giants are flying out one after another. These giant beasts are all kinds of strange. Some imitate the creatures on the blue star, and some have irregular shapes. They are all made of special steel, and the built-in energy source shines with a rich blue light. Who is it? Dare to attack us? A deep voice came from inside a steel giant. He looked up at the center of the energy riot, and suddenly locked onto the figure above the giant gun. Humans. Tiny humans. When they came to this planet, these mechanical life forms did not pay attention to the local humans at all. They even completely destroyed several nearby safe zones without leaving any hidden dangers. During this time, these mechanical races were also accumulating strength. However, the strength of metal materials on this planet was too low, so they could only produce some rough steel warriors. But even so, a terrifying mechanical race was still created. Deep under this island, the mechanical race has built an assembly line factory for manufacturing mechanical warriors. But the attack just now completely destroyed the factory. The mechanical behemoths that crawled out were like a torrent, gradually crowding the ruins on the ground. And some even activated their energy propulsion devices and flew into the sky. In just a short moment, the surrounding sky was occupied by these mechanical warriors, surrounding Lin Chi. So many? And there's also a mechanical human body? A huge number of them are mechanical life forms that are the same size as humans. But it seems that the final process has not been completed. The surface of these mechanical life forms is made of silver metal, even like the skeleton of a skeleton. This kind of robot reminded Lin Chi of the robots in the Terminator movie, and was even scarier than them. They are equipped with more powerful firepower, and their own energy devices are also extraordinary. They can even automatically hunt mutant beasts and obtain genetic crystals. It's like poking an ant's nest. Dozens of attacks came at the same time, and even several flying mechanical beasts in the sky rushed towards Lin Chi, forming a siege, breaking wind slash. In such a large-scale battle, the sword technique for group attacks is naturally the most suitable. Lin Chi stretched out his hand to grab it, and a long knife was automatically separated from the giant gun and fell into his hand. A 40-meter-long sword energy was transformed and swept across. The blue source of energy permeating the sword energy also adds powerful attack power, and even triggers the surrounding hurricane to surround. And the thunder light surges. The knife swept across, and the mechanical giant bird was instantly shattered into pieces, and its remains exploded and flew away. However, the attack did not stop. As one knife was swung, the second knife followed, and then the third knife. The sword light is like a phantom, covering an area of 80 meters with the giant gun as the center. But the huge hurricane cuts and affects a wider range. Gradually, a huge vortex formed around the giant gun, powerfully absorbing everything around it. Like a crusher, any mechanical life that enters it will be torn into pieces in an instant. Seeing that this terrifying attack had gathered momentum, the mechanical life forms hidden under the island finally couldn't hold it any longer, and giant missiles flew out from the ground one after another. Mixed with it are special ion laser weapons, which radiate with brilliant brilliance and hit the center of the vortex from all directions. The scorching energy and the impact of the explosion stunned the whirlpool, and even melted everything contained in it, forcing Lin Chi's figure out. The long knife shook violently. After being attacked, Lin Fei stood up and avoided the area hit by the laser. Even he did not dare to underestimate this kind of intensive energy impact. Azure, provide support. Seeing that the underground lasers were arranged into a network and locked in a siege towards Lin Chi, Lin Chi quickly issued an order. At the same time, bursts of blue light flashed from the bottom of the spacecraft in the atmosphere, and beams of light fell straight down. The attacks of two different cosmic civilizations collided perfectly at this moment, and a heavy sense of oppression came down, allowing the mechanical life forms hidden under the island to directly activate the highest energy defense. The familiar fluctuations in source power were at the same level of civilization as theirs, so naturally they didn't dare to be careless in the slightest. Although these extraterrestrial beings were trapped on the blue star, and each knew that the other was weak, no one expected that the first to attack them would be humans. Chapter 318: Encirclement and Suppression of Mechanical Life. Taking advantage of the gap in the attack, Lin Chi escaped from the center of the explosion and flew to the outskirts of the island. At the same time, the information about this island was also passed on to the major federations in Blue Star. It is difficult to eliminate these alien forces by one person, and we must rely on the power of all mankind. This kind of mechanical life seems to be an evolutionary path. Looking at the mechanical life destroyed in the explosion, Lin Chi couldn't help but sigh. The mechanical life race is also an advanced civilization in the universe. They were originally carbon-based life forms, because they mastered a consciousness transmission technology. When the planet's resources were scarce, they uploaded all racial consciousness into the machine body. From then on, it was completed. The evolution of immortality. But the price paid is also huge. After becoming a cold mechanical life form, you can no longer feel everything you once had. Although it is eternal, it has limitations. The mechanical life below the island is still pouring out continuously, and some are even far away from the island, spreading in all directions. After exposing their identity information, these mechanical beings seem to have received some kind of order and began to execute some kind of special plan. As more and more mechanical beings escaped from the island, Lin Chi gradually realized that something was wrong. What are these guys going to do? He was still near the island, and his aura had not converged. But the mechanical life forms no longer attacked, but instead formed small teams and evacuated far away. Sir, I just received the message they sent. These mechanical life forms have received core orders and are trying to disperse and hide and find new bases. Whalon intercepted a piece of information flow in time and analyzed the intentions of these mechanical life forms. It turns out that this island has been hollowed out a long time ago, and even the resources on the island have been exhausted. The mechanical life forms have long been ready to move elsewhere and continue to reproduce the species. After Lin Chi broke this balance, the plan for the second reproduction and expansion began to advance. Informed the Source Project soldiers on the spacecraft and prepared to start fighting. Lin Chi never thought from the beginning that he would directly eliminate this mechanical race, expose them to human vision, and only through joint encirclement and suppression by the major federations could they suppress them. After all, the growth rate of this mechanical race is too fast. If it is not restricted, I am afraid that it will not be long before a steady stream of mechanical behemoths appear. By then, the threat to human beings will even exceed that of mutant beasts and evolved bugs. After the order was given, the spacecraft slowly descended to a certain height, and a large number of Project Source soldiers flew out from it to attack and bomb the surrounding islands. The awakening ability of 4th to 5th level genetic experts has reached a certain level. As long as it is an attack-type awakening power, it can easily destroy these ordinary mechanical life forms. For a time, fire was splashing above the island, and various energy shock waves emerged endlessly. With the cooperation of many Project Source teams, they quickly cleared away the mechanical life forms around the island. But most of them had already evacuated the island and stayed away from the center of the battlefield. At the same time, the major federations on Blue Star also received information and dispatched battleship teams to this place. If this kind of mechanical life form can be used, it can easily copy a good artificial intelligence, and even analyze the core technology, and even improve the giant mecha again. The advantages and disadvantages can be seen with just a little analysis. So how could those federations miss such an opportunity? After the Vanguard arrived and learned the origins of these mechanical life forms, they began to request support. For a time, many federations put aside other matters, and put the task of hunting mechanical life forms first. Even the 4 major bases and the Beijing Security Zone dispatched several fleets to carve up one direction with the island as the center. Human beings are very terrifying creatures in some respects. These mechanical life forms are very weak before they grow up. As long as they are killed quickly enough and do not give them a chance to reproduce and grow, their growth will be completely eliminated. Of course, as long as one fish slips through the net, this kind of mechanical life form will not become extinct. Lin Chi led the Source Project team directly to the bottom of the island, which has been expanded into a steel factory. And there are a large number of mechanical life forms that have not yet awakened. These are formed carriers, which can be activated into a low-level mechanical life form simply by transmitting the information consciousness of the mechanical life form into them. However, all the information in the database has been transferred, leaving only some useless items. But to Lin Chi, these things are of great value. As long as they are controlled by Wei Lan's information data branch, they can become the most powerful intelligent robot. The team quickly gathered together and transported all these things to the spaceship. This time, most of the high-end combat power in the safe zone was deployed, and the rewards were extremely rich. From the beginning of the battle to now, a large number of mechanical life forms have been killed, and the remains have been transported to the spaceship. There are even parts of the core that have not been destroyed and are still active. Get ready. Let's start returning, and leave the rest to them. Other federations were still searching for fish that had slipped through the net, but Lin Chi no longer looked down upon those things. With the help of all mankind, he easily restricted the development of mechanical life forms, and even gave them no hope of rising. As the spacecraft quickly moved away, the island on the sea suddenly shook violently. The island's crust had been unstable after the bombing. At this moment, an explosion was triggered at the deepest point, and the entire island began to slowly sink. The self-exposure device is actually hidden so deeply. There was a trace of surprise in Lin Chi's eyes. He had just led the team into the island and went deeper, but he didn't realize that there was a self-exposure device hidden in it. Fortunately, I was not greedy and evacuated the island early. But at this moment, the other federal soldiers on the island suffered a catastrophe. Under the violent explosion, only some Project Source soldiers managed to escape, while the others were all buried under the ruins and sank into the deep sea. After returning to the safe zone, Lin Chi took out all the harvest and studied it. Within those fragmented mechanical life forms, there is still the information consciousness of the mechanical clan. Even though their bodies are incomplete, they still have the power to resist. But this form of information consciousness has great uses, especially after the decomposition and reorganization of Azure. A new intelligent program will be formed. Then this new intelligent program is input into the brought back unawakened mechanical life form, and a brand new mechanical life form will be formed. Moreover, the mechanical transformation technology of mechanical life forms far exceeds the technology of many civilizations, and its internal complexity is simply unimaginable. Chapter 319 The Second Beast Tide. The lowest level of mechanical life form is purely mechanical, and there are even exposed wires on the body. The internal energy source is a nuclear energy battery and a bioenergy battery, which are enough to support their activities for several years, and also include the use of their own laser weapons. But this kind of mechanical life is the lowest level, can only perform some simple tasks, and is not very intelligent. A more powerful mechanical life has a more complex internal structure, and even some special materials are added to it. It has independent thinking and can handle complex tasks. Those mechanical elites are made of nanotechnology. Not only are they physically powerful, but they also have the ability to automatically absorb metal and restore their bodies. Under normal circumstances, it is difficult to kill them, due to the lack of blue star materials. Advanced mechanical life forms have not yet appeared, but there must be some hidden ones that have not been discovered by humans. With this deeper technology, Lin Chi quickly used his mechanical transformation skills to redesign the giant mecha and added some unique ideas. The major federations also turned their attention to alien life, especially the study of mechanical life, scrambling to capture those escaping mechanical life forms. For a time, the number of dormant mechanical lives dropped sharply, and most of them disappeared and never appeared again. After this experience, humans also turned their attention to extraterrestrial life. After Lin Chi provided free information, at least two kinds of cosmic life existed on the Blue Star. They crashed somewhere on Blue Star during the last war. After recovering during this period, they have established a temporary base. If they are allowed to continue to develop, they will definitely become mankind's biggest enemy in the future. But as long as they can be restrained, the benefits gained from them will also make mankind's strength rapidly increase in a short period of time. In the safe zone, rows of mechanical life forms were injected with Azure data information, and all were activated. Bai Su, do you think mechanical life can surpass carbon-based life? Deep in the base, the two men were studying a most advanced mechanical life form in the laboratory. This one was made of nanomaterials, and it was also the most valuable one that Lin Chi seized from the island. Mechanical life forms must be stronger. After all, the existence of carbon-based life is limited. Cells will fail and genes will degrade, unless there is a level beyond carbon-based life. While Bai Su was studying, She casually replied that in her petri dish was a bottle of golden blood, which was collected from the Jinling race. There are many types of life forms in the universe, including elemental forms. Carbon-based life is the most common and the most widespread, but it also has the greatest potential. Lin Chi knew more about this than Bai Su. After all, Weilon had integrated the database of the Jinling race, which recorded all the creatures they knew. In addition to low-level life, there are also some high-level life that can even survive in space. Some special races even have strong physiques right after birth, and their genetic strength can even exceed that of 9th-level genetic evolvers. Blue Star is just an inconspicuous planet in the universe. Sometimes even a war in the universe can cause the destruction of this small planet. After opening my eyes, I have more and more things to worry about. If it were only before, Lin Chi could confidently believe that he was invincible on Blue Star, and could even control the entire human race as his genetic strength continued to increase. But facing the alien life in the database, although his own strength is special, it is still not worth mentioning. Next, we should find a way to remove the other 2 cosmic life races from the Blue Star. With spaceships and starships, Lin Chi is not afraid at all in large-scale battles. Even though the opponent has been developing for a while, it is not a local battle after all. There is still a gap between the resources on Blue Star and their planet's resources. I have detected the locations of those 2 bases. One is in the North American Federation and seems to be connected to the humans there, and the other is under the Arctic Glacier. Bai Su finally detected 2 waves of information through the cosmic detector he had obtained from Jinling before, thus locking the location. Announce the base of the North American Federation and let other federations in Blue Star deal with it. Let's deal with the guys under the glacier. Lin Chi decisively sold one piece of information and concentrated on studying the other. These alien life forms that crashed on the Blue Star are not very powerful. They are basically miscellaneous soldiers. Even the technology of the previous Blue Star has the power to resist, so there is nothing to worry about. The top priority now is to quickly digest the technology brought by Jinling and allow the safe zone to develop rapidly. At the same time, the mechanical life forms evacuated from that island found a place to stay again. Several mechanical flying behemoths slowly landed in the ruins. As the machinery deformed, huge drills penetrated into the ground and gradually disappeared from the ground. Everything in the safe zone returned to calm, and the blue data flow occupied the strongest mechanical life form, giving it the ability to move freely. Under her control, the entire safety zone was managed in an orderly manner, giving an Xian finally a chance to relax. Even though the scale of the beast tide formed by the resurrected mutant beasts was larger than last year, the safety zone's defenses were fully improved, and it was easily resisted. It's just that this time the tide of beasts lasted far longer than the last time. It's been a month, and the beast wave hasn't dissipated yet. On the city wall, the rotating source project soldiers were fully armed. Although no one was injured, they were obviously mentally exhausted. Let the soldiers withdraw first, and then use the source cannon. The energy reserve available to the spacecraft is not enough to support continuous attacks, but it is urgent and must support the ground. Lin Chi's order was accurately transmitted to everyone's communication through Weilon. And then under the cover of laser fire, all the awakened people fighting outside the energy barrier evacuated back. Curtains of blue light fell from the sky, pouring down on the ground like rain. One after another, the mutant beasts were hit by this special attack, and their bodies instantly fell to the ground. Such an intensive attack, although the power of a single target is not strong, is just right for targeting the tide of mutated beasts, whose overall strength is also low. Only some powerful mutant beasts were still advancing slowly despite this attack. The evolved bugs have broken through to the 6th level. Under the blue light rain, some weak mutant beasts and evolved bugs were quickly eliminated. But those powerful individuals stood out. Huge black beetles emerged from the ground one after another, and energy attacks could not cause any damage to their carapace. When all these bugs were gathered together, green light condensed from their mouths, converging into a torrent and blasting towards the energy barrier in the safe zone. Chapter 320 Nuclear Bomb Cleanses the Land. The 6th level bug is as big as a house, but its moving speed is not slow at all. Moreover, most of these bugs have thick hard LS, and their defenses are even stronger than those of mutant beasts of the same level. Especially the ones that appeared just now can actually emit thick energy shock waves. The energy barrier in the safe zone was constantly trembling, but it was not attacked out of the damaged area. When the attack of the spaceship stopped, the beast tide emerged again in the distance. Let Weilon take the lead for a while, and send out combat mechas to deal with it. The mechanical lifeforms captured last time have now reached a large scale in quantity. Coupled with the large-scale mechas developed in the safe zone, it will be more suitable to deal with this kind of beast tide. After the order was given, hidden passages were opened in the safe zone, and rays of light flew out. These are mechanical mechas and underground bases, small and mobile, with sufficient heavy firepower. That kind of large mecha is more powerful in combat. 5 giant mechas also joined the battle. Under the cover of small mechas, this behemoth rushed directly into the beast tide, and could wipe out a large area with a single move of the knife. With the assistance of technology, once they join the battlefield, it is easy for the Awakened to feel that the pressure is drastically reduced, and they even have free time to collect loot. Lin Chi did not participate in this battle. After all, once he joined, he could easily reverse the occupation and have a certain influence on the progress of the Awakened people. Without intervention, the safe zone is the most qualified safe zone if it can easily withstand the attack of the beast tide. Although he did not intervene, Lin Chi was always paying attention to the changes in the battlefield, and had the spacecraft continuously capture images in the sky, looking for suspicious high-level mutant beasts. The cause of the beast tide must be prompted by a special being behind it. Most likely the mutated white sheep from last time. However, no trace of the mutated white sheep has been found so far, and it seems to be hiding in the dark. We received information from the 4 major bases and the safety zone in the capital. They were attacked by high-level mutant beasts. It seems that they have reached the 8th level. When Shio passed on the received information, and what was on the screen was the image of 2 safe zones resisting the beast tide. And this month, mutant beasts are riding all over Blue Star, as if they have entered some kind of season. Are they 8th level mutant beasts? It seems that those top mutant beasts have increased their strength again. Mutated beasts grow very quickly, especially those that are blessed by source power, and are inherently much stronger than ordinary mutant beasts. The skyrocketing size makes these guys the biggest threat to the safe zone, and it often takes a lot of force to eliminate them. However, human beings' current strength has also been greatly improved. As long as they are prepared, they should be able to cope with it. Are there any 8th level mutant beasts near us? Although Lin Chi sometimes pays careful attention, he is not as good as Wen Xiao in holding his position in all aspects. He still has to ask for some detailed information. No, the strongest one is only the 6th level, and there has never been a 7th level existence yet. Wen Xiao was also puzzled. There were already a certain number of 7th level mutant beasts on Blue Star, not to mention flooding. However, this wave of beasts seemed to have deliberately avoided the Central Plains safe zone, and not a single 7th level mutant beast came close at all. It seems that they are also afraid and dare not come to die. Mutated beasts are also very intelligent, especially the Ares. Knowing how powerful Lin Chi is, he will naturally not let his mutant beasts come to die. This situation continued for several more days, and the beast tide still did not weaken. Mutated beasts from the south, and even other federations were migrating towards the vast land of the Central Asian Federation. In the underground base, Lin Chi and the women around him watched the data controlled by Wei Lan and directed changes in the outside world at all times. Without human interference, mutant beasts have a large amount of living space, and their ability to reproduce has also been greatly improved. It has increased several times in just 1 year, especially some weak mutant beasts. It is normal to reproduce several times a year, and the number will increase dramatically. Bai Su analyzed the growth trend of mutant beasts, and was slightly shocked when he saw the data completed. Just a few of the low-level mutant beasts have already seen a geometric surge in their numbers, not to mention bugs with better reproductive capabilities. Then their suicidal charge is reducing their own numbers. Although Blue Star's resources are sufficient, they cannot be consumed by such a large number of mutant beasts. If the food supply is insufficient, it will definitely cause widespread extinction. The giant white sheep seemed to be aware of this, and launched a beast tide in advance, which not only reduced the number of mutant beasts, but also occupied a larger territory for the mutant creatures. After learning this information, Lin Chi realized that the human living space would be squeezed again in the future, and it would be hard to say whether he could even hold on to the last trace of pure land in the end. However, as long as humans can survive this crisis, there will be a period of rapid development, and perhaps improvements will occur in the future. Lin Chi looked at the projection on the screen and fell into deep thought for a moment. But this situation did not affect him. Even if the safe zone was destroyed in the end, he could take the people around him to leave on a starship and find a new home. I just received news that some federations can no longer resist and are preparing to drop nuclear bombs to clear the ground. Now the network on Blue Star has formed a hole, And the controller behind it is Wei Lan, the most powerful intelligent life. As soon as he got the news, he passed it on to Lin Chi. As expected, the trump card will eventually be used. When the North American Federation was hunting the 7th level mutant beasts, they used small nuclear bombs, but they did not cause a fatal attack on the 7th level mutant beasts. Instead, they promoted the evolution of the opponents. However, the lethality of nuclear bombs is not comparable to that of low-level mutant beasts. At least those below level 6 cannot withstand this impact. Although it can relieve urgent needs, no one can estimate what impact it will have in the future. Lin Chi couldn't stop this situation at all. And he would not stop it. With a roar, a nuclear bomb exploded in the tide of mutant beasts. A mushroom cloud rose into the sky, and a huge shockwave spread and shook. Just one nuclear bomb eliminated the external hidden dangers in a safe zone and turned all mutant beasts into ashes. It seemed that the first nuclear bomb had a good effect, and then a second one fell in another area. The third one. Even the 4 major bases dropped several nuclear bombs on the Gobi in no man's land, blasting open several gaps in the 4 major bases that had been surrounded. For a time, there were constant roars from the Blue Star, and mushroom clouds rose up, causing the revived Blue Star to be riddled with holes in an instant. Chapter 321: Building a Virtual Network. 1 month after the nuclear explosion, the sky was still gray and dust was everywhere. A large number of mutated beasts were affected by the radiation and died. The whole ruins were littered with corpses, and the stench was soaring into the sky. The vegetation has withered, and the original green has turned into a burnt yellow color. Even the central area of the nuclear explosion has turned into a piece of scorched earth. But the surviving mutated beasts mutated as expected, and even the dry trees began to sprout buds. All this indicates that after death, new life will be brought. The energy barrier has not been closed in the safe zone for a month. But it is precisely because of this energy barrier that the humans in the safe zone have not been affected in any way. He didn't go out for a month, but the supplies accumulated from the previous beast wave were enough for the people in the safe zone, and they had not been completely processed. In the underground base, Winchio is always paying attention to the radiation changes on the ground, but it has not yet reached the limit of being able to go out. It's really terrifying. They seem to have negotiated and actually dropped most of the nuclear bombs stored on Blue Star. There was a ground cleaning plan on the eve of the Doomsday, but it only used ordinary missiles to clean up mutant zombies, and even selected special areas. But this time, the nuclear bomb baptism covered all directions. In addition to the safe areas where humans gathered, most of the places occupied by zombies and mutant beasts were affected. Humanity is really about to enter the wasteland era now. The arrival of a new era will greatly reduce the number of humans. Our existing supplies may not be able to support it for long. Lin Chi couldn't help but sigh. Although the Central Plains Security Zone is developing rapidly, it has insufficient foundation after all. Behind a seemingly strong material storage, it is extremely limited. Unlike the 4 major bases and the Beijing Safety Zone, there are decades of accumulated supplies that cannot be used up even if they are trapped for a year and a half. I just hope that the mutated beast meat after the nuclear explosion can still be eaten. Otherwise, we can only find ways to reduce the pressure. Baisu pushed up his glasses. A group of people were discussing the future development, but in the end there was no answer. Fortunately, there are still a large number of food-growing areas within the safety zone. Relying on these stores and the harvest from the last beast wave, we can still persist for some time. This month has also allowed the awakened ones, who have been fighting in the safe zone for a long time, to have a good rest. While consuming the gains from the battle, their strength has further improved a lot. Taking advantage of this period of time, Lin Chi asked Wei Lan to combine the technology of the Jinling civilization and the technology of the mechanical life race to rebuild the Wei Lan network. People in the apocalypse don't have many ways to entertain themselves. They can only continue to hunt mutant beasts to consume their energy. But once they are idle, many problems will occur over time. Therefore, many ways to spend time have been added in building a virtual network. This kind of virtual network is not a high-end technology. There are even programs built in various cosmic civilizations. Wei Lan just copied a copy of the data in Jinling's database, and then built the virtual world through the Blue Star data previously scanned by the spacecraft. After that, the only trouble is to create a connection method that affects the mental power to enter the virtual world. The most basic connection method is to connect brain waves in the form of a helmet. The mechanical life form has its own information data channel, and does not require external assistance at all. Lin Chi divided this kind of helmet into 2 levels. The ordinary level only needs to connect to the network. And then the helmet can transmit brain waves and enter the virtual network. Of course, this level of influence is far from a high-level sense of reality. But even so, it is an epic making progress. The advanced helmet has been added to the source project armor. And you can choose to enter the virtual world at any time. The sense of reality even reaches 90% compatibility with the outside world. To rebuild the order of civilization, we must reshape civilization. We must first build a civilized order in the virtual world, and then slowly transition to real civilization. The order planned by Lin Chi is very comprehensive. In addition to learning from the orders of other cosmic civilizations, it also incorporates some special features of the Blue Star civilization. A few days later, Weilon produced the first-generation consciousness sensor. Looking at several helmet-like items on the operating table, Lin Chi couldn't help but look forward to it. I think back when online game novels were popular. This kind of gaming helmet that could transmit consciousness was all the rage, and even started a trend for a time. At that time, Lin Chi fantasized about whether he could experience this kind of high-tech game in his lifetime. He never expected that he would witness the birth of this kind of technology after the end of the world. How about I try it first? Bai Su is still a little unsure about this kind of consciousness-connecting instrument. After thinking about it, he will definitely try it first so that if there is any danger, he can deal with it in advance. Please believe me, there will be no problems 100%. Weilon slowly walked up to the crowd, took off a helmet, and handed it to Lin Chi. The data of the virtual world is the product of the fusion of two civilizations. With a large amount of experience in data, there is no possibility of problems. Moreover, Weilon has undergone countless tests and has reached 100% safety limits. I should go first. My mental power has reached a certain level. Even if there is danger, I can respond in time. Lin Chi took the helmet and sat on the chair. After putting on the helmet, he started to connect the data. An illusory scene suddenly appeared in front of him, as if he had entered another space. Would you like to enter a virtual world? A blue voice sounded in Lin Chi's mind. After the prompt, a special wave enveloped his entire body. Enter. After experiencing it for the first time, Lin Chi was excited and nervous at the same time, ready to deal with unknown situations that might arise. But as the confirmed order was issued, his consciousness was connected by an invisible force, and the surrounding environment suddenly changed. The next second, he appeared in a familiar place, just above the Central Plain Safety Zone. Looking down from a high altitude, the entire safe zone has a panoramic view. The circular city wall is more majestic than reality, and the buildings in the safe zone are replicas 1-to-1. But there is no trace of human activity. Azure, Lin Chi subconsciously called out and controlled his body to slowly fall. Sir, I'm here. A blue figure also appeared in front of his eyes. But compared to the texture of the nano body, this body was more real. Is this a virtual world? Give me all the permissions. Lin Chi landed on the tallest building. After receiving the authority, an indescribable feeling surged into his heart. So he raised his hand and waved, and the building in front of him instantly fell apart and turned into powder, flying in the wind. However, with another thought, the destroyed building recovered quickly, as if nothing had happened. Chapter 322 Mutated Creatures. The virtual world and the real world are on a 1-to-1 scale. These are new worlds built after blue scanning. Compared with the real world, the virtual world with some special rights allows people to do whatever they want. Lin Chi's figure kept flashing in the sky, moving from the Central Plain Safety Zone to the Beijing Safety Zone, and then to the 4 major bases and other federations. But in this virtual world, there is only Lin Chi now, and there is not even a trace of the mutant beast. Loneliness is heart-stopping. Weilon, can you import some data of mutant beasts to make this world more exciting? Suspended in the air, looking at the vibrant life among the dilapidated ruins on the land. This is the data recorded by Weilon before the nuclear explosion occurred. With this data, it will be easier to locate when going out to find supplies in the future. Sir, I have collected data on tens of thousands of mutant beasts, which can be imported into the virtual world and built into models. As Weilon's words fell, streaks of blue light suddenly appeared in the ruins. After the light condensed, mutant creatures appeared one after another. The low-level mutant creatures have taken shape quickly, and only those high-level ones will be slower. And there are also a large number of evolved bugs, special mutant zombies, etc. The import of data gave this virtual world a sense of ambiguity. Lin Chi understood that this process might take some time, so he chose to exit the virtual world. When he opened his eyes again and returned to reality, Everyone in the basement gathered around and looked at Lin Chi curiously. How was it? Was it successful? After all, Lin Chi is the first person to enter the virtual world and has the most say. It's very realistic. And the virtual world is still under construction. It may take some time to perfect it. In the meantime, everyone is thinking about what else can be added. Mutated creatures in the virtual world allow awakened people to experience combat personally, thereby improving their combat experience. If there were more rules, or a dual arena, rankings, etc., it might increase everyone's interest. This reminded Lin Chi of the games he once played. The latter advancement mode was very suitable for experience in the virtual world. At the same time, you could also add wild exploration missions and scenes of hunting high-level mutant beast boss. After handing these ideas over to Wei Lan, Lin Chi took the rest of the people out of the underground base and returned to the comfort zone of the villa area. Since they couldn't go out of the safe zone, everyone took a rare break. After reorganizing the safe zone, they enjoyed peace for a long time. However, the peaceful days will not last long. Abnormal energy fluctuations are constantly coming from the ruins of the nuclear explosion, which seems to be breeding something terrible. A few months later, winter entered, and colorful snow began to fall from the sky. The only people who can get out of the safe zone are the awakened ones wearing the Special Source Project armor. And the materials of this armor are still made from the materials of the mutated mammoth and Godzilla. Their bodies have the ability to automatically absorb radiation power, which is the key to completely protecting the awakened ones within. At first, Lin Chi sent a small team to explore near the safe zone. The radiation of the nuclear explosion is transmitted in a decreasing manner, but the spreading shock waves continue to converge, covering almost the entire blue star. Under the influence of this force, almost no living thing can escape. Even the bugs deep underground have encountered erosion infection. Outside the safe zone, the elite team carefully explored everything around them, trying to find a living creature from the ruins. It was even more difficult than finding a person among the mutant beasts before. Captain, the radiation level has dropped a lot. Maybe with a few more heavy snowfalls, the ban will be lifted. The team was all fully armed, and the leader was scanning the surroundings with instruments. And the sound of beeping could be heard. It's not that easy. In 3 to 5 years, it will still be a restricted area for life. But now that human genes are stronger than before, they may be able to withstand the effects of radiation, the captain said with a serious tone. A familiar face revealed under the mask. This person is none other than Captain Vinci. Not surprisingly, as his genetic strength increases, he has also entered the upper echelons of the safe zone and gained access to the high-level source plan armor. Vinci's experience is also legendary. He was originally just the captain of a squad of soldiers, without connections or opportunities. It would be difficult for him to put on the Project Source armor in this life. But the commander-in-chief of the Central Plains Security Zone was brought here by Captain Vinci. This credit alone is enough to keep him comfortable with food and clothing for the rest of his life. But Vinci was unwilling to be lonely. Even so, he still rushed to the front line and contributed every effort he could. The team advanced hundreds of kilometers and recorded data on radiation levels and changes in the ruined world before issuing the order to return. They all have information devices that can be transmitted to the Blue database, and everything recorded will be uploaded. While going out to investigate, Lin Chi can also learn all the information. Just as the team was returning, there was suddenly a tremor in the ruins, as if something strange was moving underground. This kind of movement instantly aroused Wen Shi's vigilance, and he immediately raised his hand to signal everyone to be quiet. Be careful. Something is coming out. No one has found any living creatures since they went out. The sudden movement is really surprising. I saw the ruins in the distance squirming, and cracks gradually appeared on the ground. After the ruins were propped up, a gray tentacle came out of it. This tentacle had a smooth surface and looked as thick as a telephone pole, and the tip was extremely sharp. After it emerged from the ground, it suddenly attacked everyone. Spread. Wincy gave an order, and everyone quickly dispersed to avoid the sudden blow. However, the next second, several tentacles emerged from the ground, struggling and squirming like broken insect eggs. Vincent only felt his scalp numb, but the unknown creature had not completely appeared yet, and he could not find an opportunity to attack for a while. Captain, what on earth is this? In their knowledge, they had never seen such a weird creature. Upon closer inspection, more than a dozen long gray tentacles appeared. Who knows what will mutate under the radiation? Upload the information and notify the safe zone. Although their team is quite strong, they are still newly promoted Project Source warriors, and do not have much combat experience. And their opponent is the first species to appear after the nuclear explosion. So you have to be careful. It has been uploaded, and the safe zone has also responded. Let us be careful and not act without authorization. They will send people to support as soon as possible. After the soldier reported the information, he looked up and saw that the ground was lifted directly, and the dozen or so tentacles cut everything around them into pieces no matter how they waved. Finally, the body under the tentacles was revealed. Chapter 323 Support is coming. Mutant rat? Is it a mutant rat? A mutated rat that is indescribably large. And its entire body has not yet been revealed. They had also seen the 5th level mutant rat king before. Although the body was equally huge, it was much weaker than other mutant beasts. Their threat is due to their numbers. But the mutant rat in front of him was larger than a 5-story building. And its skin had turned into cuticles, glowing with gray. A pair of scarlet eyes, full of fierceness and bloodthirsty. Especially the dozen or so tentacle-like long tails on the back give people a numbing feeling. Have group organisms mutated and advanced into single organisms? Based on his own conjecture, Vince judged that such a huge body could no longer be possessed by a creature that reproduced in large numbers. As the size increased, something would definitely be lost. But this judgment is just his wishful thinking. Attack! See if you can knock it off. Vince quickly issued an order. Although the safety zone had sent support, it would be bad if they did not take action at all and let the mutant rat escape. Immediately, several people quickly flew up and surrounded the mutant rat. Wincy raised his hand and fired a small energy bomb. When he got closer, the magnetic force was attracted to the mutated rat. As the beeping sound became more rapid, a sudden violent explosion came, causing the mutant rat to scream. The stinging sensation instantly sent the mutant rat into a frenzy. The dozens of long tails on its back squirmed crazily, waving towards the sky like giant snakes. These long tails can even extend several times farther. One of them was hit directly by the long tail without noticing, and was knocked away dozens of meters away. Fortunately, the armor materials they wore had reached level 7, so they were not injured. Be careful. Its tail attacks from a long distance, like a long spiked tail. Everyone evacuated 100 meters away again, using only long-range attacks to interfere. Lasers shot out one after another, and some of them had powerful awakening powers, mixed with special attacks, and bombarded the mutated rats head-on and face-to-face. Original martial arts. Prairie fire spear. An awakened person possessing origin martial arts fired out a shot, condensing a flame shock, which hit the mutant rat's head, burning out a large piece of black skin. Under such a violent bombardment, the mutated rat suddenly screamed and screamed. Dozens of its long tails swung wildly, struggling to roll up the wreckage on the ground and throwing it around. At the same time, he scrambled with his limbs, turned over the rubble, and burrowed underground. Don't let it get away. Seeing the mutant rat trying to escape, Vincent quickly flew up and grabbed a long tail, trying to pull it with his own power. Captain, let go! Even though Vince's genetic strength is good, and he has activated the 4th level genetic lock, he still cannot pull such a huge mutant rat, let alone get into a cave. After breaking free a little, the mutant rat had already noticed the gravity on its tail, locked the remaining spikes on its tail, and stabbed towards Vincent. Feeling the bombardment coming, a shield suddenly appeared in front of Wincy, and he blocked it with spikes. At the same time, his arms extended into claws, and were inserted directly into the ground. Don't let it get away. A special experimental subject must be carefully studied in the base. If it escapes, it will be difficult to capture it. Only then did several other people step forward and use their attacks to resist those spikes. One person controls one and resists the other, resulting in a stalemate. But this situation didn't last long. The spikes on the tail suddenly squirmed violently and merged into a huge one. With a strong flick, several people were thrown away. This huge tail swept across like a giant pillar, and dozens of spikes split out from the tip, attacking the surrounding Source Project warriors. This guy is such a thief. He only has one tail exposed. How should we deal with him? This special attack method makes people unable to deal with it for a while. After all, this tail is the essence of the mutant rat, and its toughness is far beyond that of ordinary materials. When everyone was at a loss what to do, several figures suddenly flew up from the sky and landed quickly. Backup is coming. Before the person arrived, the message had been passed on, and the person who came was none other than Susan. Susan is now one of the top experts in the Central Plains Security Zone, and is Lin Chi's most effective general. Therefore, It is most appropriate for him to handle this urgent task. Before Susan even landed, he understood the characteristics of this mutated giant rat. His body instantly grew larger, and he charged forward. He hugged the huge tail. His strength surged, and he roared out, "Come out!" The powerful force caused the ground centered on him to collapse instantly. And the underground where the mutant rat was hiding collapsed instantly. And a powerful force directly pulled it out. Boom! Susan held the long tail and swung it, hitting the ground directly, causing the mutant rat to endure an unimaginable impact. However, after the blow, Susan did not let go and swung it hard again. The huge mutant rat, which was as high as a 5-story building, flew up again. Boom! After hitting it more than a dozen times in a row, Susan stopped and returned to his normal size until a large amount of blood came out of the mutant rat's mouth and nose. Is it just this one? For him, this situation is just a warm-up. How many more do you want to appear? If this thing spreads, it will be a disaster. After all, where the base is, if all mutated rats undergo secondary mutations caused by radiation, it would be almost a disaster for humans. Fortunately, after fighting for such a long time, only one appeared. That's right. Take this thing back to the safe area first. Maybe we can research something. Susan glanced at the mutated rat, and for a moment he regretted that he had struck too harshly. However, even if this kind of thing only had one breath, it would have great hidden dangers, and Xiangxing must be killed completely. Everyone grabbed a split tail and flew towards the safe zone. Afterwards, they studied and analyzed the data. If the irradiated creatures also had edible value, it would undoubtedly greatly reduce the burden on the safe zone. Send the mutant rat to the underground base, where Lin Chi and his team are already waiting. The genes of organisms that mutate twice have basically collapsed, and their bodies will undergo unimaginable changes. The splitting of the tail is where the transformation occurs. Bai Su just took one look and understood the degree of alienation of this mutant rat. Similarly, other mutant rats may not be able to withstand the radiation and die directly, or other mutations may have occurred. Wei Lan, we will send a team of mechanical life forms to the target location later to explore and see if there are any other mutant rats underground. After Lin Chi made an explanation, he began to study the mutant rat. First, he cut off the special tail. The strength of some materials has exceeded the 7th level, but there is no awakening source power. The tail is a good material and can be used to make special weapons. As for other materials, it is of little use. After testing, the mutated mice still contain a large amount of viruses and radiation and cannot be eaten. In this regard, no one had much hope. After all, even before, few people would eat this stuff. Chapter 324 Shiling's Battle. There are still some places that have not been baptized by nuclear bombs, such as the North and South Pole, where mutant creatures are rare, and the Commonwealth of Australia, which is known as an animal paradise. Other areas where mutant beasts are overflowing have also not received critical care. Firstly, they considered the impact of radiation and left a few pure hunting areas for humans. Secondly, they were afraid that the top mutant beasts would evolve and become too mutated to handle. When the diffuse radiation clouds in the sky have completely dispersed, the harsh winter has passed. With the recovery of spring, some tenacious plants have sprouted buds again. During this period, nothing was done in the safe zone. After Azure's planning, the interior was renovated, and even solid barriers began to be built underground to prevent the pervasive penetration of radiation. Taking advantage of the opportunity of the virtual network, Lin Chi covered the entire Blue Star with the Blue Network and invited all the major federations of Blue Star to join it. At this stage, all people who enter the virtual network world can communicate face-to-face to discuss the future survival plan. The fleet was wrapped in a layer of energy, passing through the barrier and flying towards the nearest pure place. The purpose of this hunting trip was to obtain a large amount of mutated animal meat to provide for human consumption in the safe zone, and to open up a purchase route for the future. Therefore, Lin Chi specially led the team to prepare for emergencies. In a separate rest cabin, Lin Chi sat on a chair, playing with Shiling's twin ponytails with both hands. Xiaoling shook her body slightly, and her petite body gave Lin a stronger sense of urgency. You are really good at seizing opportunities. If you encounter danger later, can you still fight in this state? Lin Chi gently held Xiaoling's waist and moved down a little further. Xiaoling, who was still immersed in happiness, suddenly opened her mouth wide, as if she was pushed to an unbelievable position. After taking a deep breath, I got used to it, husband. Do you have the heart to let me fight those ugly mutant beasts? Xiaoling touched her lower abdomen and could even feel the shape clearly. But the more she felt like this, the more excited she became. After slowly getting used to it, she started moving again. So you can only fight with me, right? How could Lin Chi not know what Xiaoling was thinking? But the busyness of the past few days had left him out in the cold. So he slowly stood up and walked to the window of the observation cabin. It was still a bit gray outside, but the awakened person's vision could already see very far away. But he did not encounter any mutated creatures in the air during this flight. Until Xiaoling couldn't resist anymore and just arrived at the target location. Lin Chi went to take a shower, put on his battle armor, and flew out of the battleship. The team had already assembled and brought several steel mechas to take care of the logistics. A small team of 10 people, divided into 10 teams in total, led by the captain. Each team is equipped with 2 steel mechas and 50 awakened people. Pay attention to cooperation with each other. I will always pay attention to your battle situation. Lin Chi stood on top of the battleship and quickly issued the final order. Long before departure, mission objectives had been planned for their respective teams, and everyone already knew how to act. What's more, the network communication within the source plant armor will always remind them how to act. Commander, don't worry. We promised to complete the mission. Most of the soldiers who went out this time were new faces. Although their strength was not as strong as the first column in the safe zone, it was still easy to deal with some mutant beasts. After all, since the development of the virtual network, Lin Chi has focused on training the cooperation of these people. Although it is his first time on the battlefield, he has cooperated countless times in the network. Moreover, the data of those mutant beasts are all carefully selected powerful mutant beasts. Compared with this, the difficulty here is much lower. This area is a small country that was not affected by nuclear bombs before. After the vegetation overflowed, it has become a primitive forest. Moreover, the mutated beasts here are very little affected by radiation, and the meat should be edible. The team advanced slowly. Some special mutated plants could also be eaten. The 50 weaker awakeners were responsible for collecting these things. The front is hunting mutant beasts, and the rear is responsible for collecting resources. The team slowly spreads in a fan shape, and several spacious roads are cleared wherever they pass. Lin Chi returned to the battleship and directly observed the progress of each team through the drone above the team. If there was danger, he could arrive as soon as possible. Xiaoling had finished washing and was sitting in Lin Chi's arms wearing loose pajamas. Although the awakened person had a special physique, she still had not recovered yet. If I had known that Rang Tianchuan would come, at least I would be able to recover after just one sip. Feeling the discomfort in her body, Xiaoling frowned and gently massaged her belly. You can recover by drinking hers, but you can't recover by drinking mine? Come and try. Lin Chi slowly pressed down on Xiaoling's head, and after diverting his attention, he began to observe the 10 scenes in front of him. The team has encountered many mutant beasts, but they are all of low level. Although the radiation here has not been directly affected, it has still affected some creatures. Some of the newly born mutated beasts have somewhat mutated genes, which is the most intuitive manifestation on the outside. Some have an extra pair of eyes, some have a few extra legs, and some have 2 heads. As for bugs, because of the large number of reproduction, there will be more surviving bases, which leads to different directions of mutation. Some mutant bugs active in the forest even have the ability to hunt mutant beasts. After a long time, Lin Chi let out a long breath and slowly relaxed. After a while, the sound of swallowing came from beneath her body, and Xiaoling slowly raised her head and lay in Lin Chi's arms. My mouth is sore and I'm exhausted. Such high-intensity work is indeed difficult for her. I'll get some 6th level genetic fluid and take it later. I'll recover after a short sleep. Lin Chi was not stingy at all. The genetic fluid that others considered precious was now just a potion to restore his physical strength to him. After putting Xiaoling to sleep in his arms, Lin Chi gently put her down and flew out of the battleship. We have just noticed that a 7th level mutant creature has appeared in this forest. Although its strength is unknown, it is still not something that this team can deal with. In order to avoid unnecessary casualties, Lin Chi decided to eliminate them with his own hands. The black armor flew out of the air and soon arrived near one of the teams deep in the forest. It's just the right time. The moment Lin Chi appeared, a forest was knocked down, and a huge black leopard slowly walked out from behind the mountain. This black panther is completely black, with a pair of giant yellow eyes staring at humans, as if looking at a group of weak insects. Its jet black fur flashes with light from time to time, which is a manifestation of the surge of power. Chapter 325 Hunting the Mutated Black Panther. There was no sign of alienation on the mutated Black Panther, but the oppressive feeling of this giant cat protruding its head from behind a mountain made everyone hold their breath. What a black leopard! Someone whispered something, and the mutated Black Panther seemed to notice it and turned his eyes. Can you do it? Lin Chi slowly landed and asked. This mutant Black Panther is a 7th level mutant beast, and it has also mastered the use of source power. Judging from its performance just now, its intelligence is not low. Although the size is not as large as those of the previous mutated behemoths, it is still a behemoth, and I am afraid it will be difficult for these newcomers to deal with it. Commander-in-Chief, let's try it. There was a trace of determination on the face of the team leader. In the virtual online world, they had also teamed up to hunt down the 7-stage mutated beasts. They cooperated with each other tacitly, but they had never defeated them. But now that you have encountered it, if you just back down, I'm afraid you won't be able to muster the courage again in the future. Okay, I'll help you sweep the formation from the side. Be careful. Lin Chi waved his hand indifferently. If he took action, the mutated Black Panther would not be enough to look at. It would be better to let them practice and find their confidence. The mutated Black Panther seemed to feel the other party's contempt. With a low roar, the huge figure disappeared instantly and rushed towards the team. The specialty of this mutated creature is speed, and even if its size increases, it will not weaken at all. However, the team had already prepared in advance. The moment the Black Panther pounced, everyone quickly dispersed to cooperate with each other. Cover me! The squad leader was the strongest. After shouting loudly, the armor sprayed out blue light and rushed towards the mutated Black Panther. He is a physical evolver, much stronger than ordinary awakened people in terms of strength and speed, and his strength is quite balanced. I saw a long knife condensed in my hand. The source of power surged, and the light of the knife roared. Source martial arts. Today's source martial arts have been developed to a mature stage, and most people can even display several techniques to use source power. Some awakened people with high understanding can even create powerful original martial arts skills to enhance their own strength. Although the blue sword light was not as good as Lin Chi's 40-meter-long sword energy, it was still not something to be underestimated. The team leader moved around, jumping on the mutated Black Panther. Others were assisting in the attack, and the giant beast was restrained for a while. But their attacks could only break the mutant Black Panther's defense, and were unable to cause fatal damage to it at all. The cooperation is pretty good, but there is no decisive means. The mutant beasts in reality are different from those in the virtual network. A mutant beast has extremely strong vitality, and can still fight back even if it is fatally attacked. However, the mutant beast in the virtual network has a health bar that can be slowly worn down. After the initial panic, the team gradually stabilized and fought back and forth with the mutant Black Panther. Even if it was attacked, the armor's defense could withstand it. But gradually, the mutated Black Panther also realized that something was wrong, and ducked behind the mountain, lowering his head. The black fur on his body shone with a layer of light, showing flowing changes. The mutated Black Panther suddenly raised his claws and swung, and the 3 claw marks turned into light blades of source power, cutting towards the team. Boom! 3 cracks several meters wide were instantly cut into the ground, which extended hundreds of meters before stopping. After this blow, all the Source Project soldiers in the team were no longer able to fight back. Although they were not directly hit, the accompanying impact caused several people to lose their ability to move. Just as the mutated Black Panther rushed up again, a figure appeared in front of several people in an instant, raised his hand and slapped him. Snapped. There was a crisp slap, and the huge mutant Black Panther flew out directly and hit the mountain in the distance. This slap immediately stunned the mutated Black Panther, and he shook his head vigorously before returning to normal. But at this moment, it no longer had the arrogance it had just now. The instinct of the beast made it more cautious, and even took a defensive posture. Watch well and study hard. Lin Chi did not use any special skills, but instead condensed a spear and rushed directly towards the mutated Black Panther. The spear thrust forward, and when the Black Panther raised its claws to attack, the tip of the spear turned and used the force to slide past. A spear pulled out a flower in Lin Chi's hand, as if it were an extension of his body. It moved left and right on the Black Panther, constantly stabbing out little bloody flowers. The body flashed past, and Lin Chi landed firmly on the ground. When he flicked the spear, a trace of blood was scattered. The mutated Black Panther roared. His body trembled violently, and a long and narrow mark was torn open on his back. The feeling of pain made the mutated Black Panther tremble all over. Its body surface had condensed source energy defense, but it could not resist the spear attack at all. There was even a sense of fear in his growling voice. Open the Heaven's Gate with one shot. After gaining the advantage, Lin Chi jumped up and suddenly swung his spear down. The huge gun shadow directly penetrated the mutant Black Panther's forehead, and the penetrating gun shadow was fixed into the ground. Just one blow completely disabled it. Finish and call it a day. The spear in his hand reintegrated into the battle armor. Lin Chi opened his visor and clapped his hands, signaling for the team to come over. After a while, 10 people far away from the fighting range flew over, and 2 of them needed help from others. Inform other teams to come over and help. Dismember the mutated Black Panther, and let the steel mecha transport it to the battleship. It's pretty good to harvest a 7th level mutant beast this time. A giant mutated beast can feed tens of thousands of people several meals just by processing its meat. Not to mention the materials on it. Its value is enough to increase the strength of the safe zone to a small level. Everyone in the team was excited. After all, they saw Lin Chi kill the 7th level mutated creature at such a close range. And he did it casually, showing his suppression. You must know that if other federations want to kill the 7th level mutant beasts at this stage, they still need the help of giant mechas and energy weapons. How can there be anyone like Lin Chi whose personal strength seriously exceeds the standard? By the time other teams came closer, it was already half an hour later. The mutated Black Panther was the overlord in this mountain forest. After the breath of death spread, no mutated creature dared to approach at all. This undoubtedly made everyone relaxed. Quite a few. But there are still quite a lot of hidden dangers, because those low-level bugs simply ignore this dangerous aura. Instead, they are attracted by the rich bloody aura and rush over one after another. Fortunately, there is an energy barrier device on the battleship. After it is installed and activated around the mutant panther, it will completely isolate the breath. The 600 people moved very quickly, dismantling the Black Panther in just a few hours, without even wasting the fallen hair. After being loaded into the battleship, I went out hunting for the first time and returned with a huge load. Chapter 326 Hidden Dangers Underground. With this first experience, Lin Chi no longer needs to direct the next hunting mission. But after choosing an area, you still need powerful Source Project warriors to explore it first and eliminate the 7th level mutant beasts. As for the others, they started to clean up the hidden dangers around the safety zone. Since the discovery of the mutant rat, the mechanical life form controlled by Azure has launched an in-depth investigation into the underground. Under the influence of radiation, most of the mutated organisms and bugs on the ground have experienced alienation. Some have moved to other places to avoid the disaster of radiation. Some of them cannot bear it, and their genes collapse and die. The remaining ones find ways to get in, going underground. While avoiding this crisis, his body is also undergoing changes. Those underground creatures have a better chance of survival than those on the ground, especially mutant rats, which have strong adaptability. Lin Chi formed an elite team and entered the entrance to an underground space through the location where the mutant rat was last found. The cave that originally collapsed has been opened by robots, and part of the area has been explored. But if you continue to go deeper, you will encounter attacks from mutant creatures. Although these robots have some strength, they still cannot compare with the mutated creatures after alienation. This is it. Further ahead is the nest of mutant creatures. A soldier in front remained vigilant and took out a small instrument and placed it on the ground. As a wave of waves passed, the detailed structure of the underground cave suddenly appeared before everyone's eyes. And the densely packed small red dots represent those hidden mutant creatures. The first team came forward to investigate. The command this time is Yan Ming. After a long period of power integration, Yan Ming's family's status in the safe zone has become lower and lower. But no one dares to despise him. After all, the first family to take sides was the Yin family. They were also one of the leaders in establishing the Central Plains Security Zone, and had a group of loyal family members under them. Yan Ming lived up to expectations, used his own expertise, and took over the management of the outer city of the safe zone. He commanded the elite combat team, and slowly went deeper into the cave, with Lin Chi and several researchers behind him. When they capture the mutant creature, you can study it on the spot. If it has value, deal with it slowly. If not, destroy the place directly. There is no way to kill all the mutated creatures dormant underground. It is impossible to bomb all the underground areas, but you can choose a large number of areas to clear out large-scale mutated creatures. As for the rest, there is nothing to worry about. The scientific researchers at the rear quickly set up research equipment and were ready at any time. Not long after, several people quickly returned, dragging some mutated creature limbs in their hands. It's such a mess. It's like a nest of snakes and rats. There are many kinds of mutant beasts in the cave, and there are a lot of rotting corpses. Almost all of them went underground to take refuge. There was a strong stench on the two warriors, and they seemed to be stained with some black mucus. Looking carefully, there was a fat white insect lying on the armor. Isn't the corpse inside already fermented? Lin Chi was wearing a face mask. Although he couldn't smell the stench, the super armor had already given a hint. After analyzing the odor, it turned out to contain nerve-paralyzing toxins. It's not just fermentation. It's become a breeding ground for bugs, and it will burst into pulp when touched. The two described the scene as disgusting and disgusting. After putting their things down, they said they didn't want to go in again. Fortunately, the detection speed was very fast. When Lin Chi saw the analyzed results, he waved his hand helplessly. Let Yin Ming and the others come back. These mutated beasts are not worth taking back and using them. Get some energy bombs and blow them up. According to the information analyzed by the data, these mutant beasts contain a large amount of radiation. And there are also mutated viruses that cannot be eaten even if they have been processed. Moreover, the mutated beasts hiding underground are of average level, and the materials are not worth acquiring. The first team was relieved after receiving the news, and quickly evacuated from the cave. It was just a simple battle, and several people were exhausted physically and mentally. Several energy bombs were thrown into it, and after starting the countdown, everyone quickly evacuated to the ground. Next time something like this happens again, I will definitely not participate. I would rather fight with a 7th level mutant beast. Yin Ning asked a Source Project soldier who controlled water to help clean the black mucus on the armor, and his disgusting voice changed. When the countdown ended, the ground suddenly trembled violently several times, and some places even collapsed into deep pits. The cathartic energy could not be diffused, and spewed out from a crack in the distance, bringing out a lot of mutated beast corpses and black sewage. A strong stench spread out, even forming a black smoke, quickly approaching everyone. Withdraw? Seeing this situation, Lin Chi immediately ordered a retreat. There was no need for everyone to encounter such a disgusting situation. After the team quickly moved away, they retreated across the sky on a battleship, avoiding the center of the smoke. In the battleship, several people in important positions gathered together to discuss the next action. On a rare trip, it was impossible to destroy just one mutant beast's lair. All hidden dangers within a radius of 100 miles must be cleared away. Otherwise, when the radiation cloud completely dissipates and these mutant beasts emerge from the ground, they will definitely pose a threat to the safe zone, and they will definitely be caught off guard. Use sound waves to vibrate and detect changes in the Earth's veins. Once you find out, you can directly drop energy bombs to destroy them. After all, making this decision will consume a lot of energy bombs, which are very scarce resources in the safe zone. If you want an energy bomb with sufficient power, you must use level 5 or above gene crystals. And now level 5 gene crystals are the main consumables used by top awakeners. But for the sake of the environment around the safe zone, trade-offs must be made. The warship flew slowly and at low altitude, and the sound waves can continue to spread, recording the environment deep underground. Then the locations of each cave were marked, and there were even connections between several of them. This place is a bit special. Why is there such a large underground space? Although most of the mutated beasts are hidden underground because they have nowhere to go, the surroundings of the safe zone have been carefully explored, especially underground, where there is not such a large space at all. Perhaps due to the previous wave of beasts, the mutated beasts with the ability to burrow fled underground, thus opening up a huge area. The sonic scanning continued, constructing the complete topography of that space. Out of curiosity, Lin Chi flew out of the battleship with a few people and landed on the ruins. As soon as he landed, he felt the ruin shrouded in a layer of dust tremble slightly. And then the ground began to squirm crazily. Chapter 327 Unicorn Behemoth. Something's coming out. Under the perception of mental power, a huge individual is slowly emerging from the ground. After breaking through the surface, a huge spike breaks out of the earth. The spikes formed a spiral shape and were nearly 20 meters long. Only after they all broke through the ground did the shape below appear. It was a huge head, a long and narrow giant like an ancient dinosaur. Only one head was revealed, which was already more than half the size of an ordinary 7th level mutant creature. This shows how powerful this mutated giant beast is. 8th level mutant beast. How come there is an 8th level mutant beast here? Lin Chi was also a little in disbelief. After all, during the beast tide, he had never encountered any mutant beasts above the 7th level, let alone the 8th level. Even the 8th level mutant beasts that appeared throughout Blue Star have been recorded. But this one with horns on its head has no records at all. Just a head frightened everyone so much that they didn't dare to step forward. They all avoided the exploding rubble and avoided the attack. You just stand aside. This thing is not something you can handle. Lin Chi quickly condensed a spear in his hand, flicked it, and the shadow of the spear dispersed. The Project Source soldiers and the team had already retreated to a distance before Lin Chi could speak. They were too self-aware. Commander Lin, it goes without saying that we all know that this guy is not something we can deal with. It's just the pressure brought by this head that makes people afraid to attack. Yan Ming laughed at himself, looking at the mutant beasts that kept emerging from the ground with lingering fear. The terrifying aura was completely different from ordinary mutant beasts. The mutated giant beast kept struggling to emerge from the ground. If it waited for its entire body to emerge from the ground, it would definitely be more difficult to deal with. Therefore, taking advantage of this time, Lin Chi quickly flew up and concentrated his gun power in the air, just in time to try out my newly learned source martial arts skills. During this period of time, Lin Chi did not gain anything. He continued to study the use of source power in the Blue Virtual Network, and thus mastered several powerful attack skills. Among them is the original martial arts skill related to the spear, although it does not have the perversion of my own skills. After fusion, it has superimposed several levels of perversion. Original martial skill: Meteor Fall, flying high into the sky. The spear gathered momentum, and the rich source of power spun around Lin Chi, driving the surrounding airflow and quickly turning into a tornado. This move combines two skills plus the characteristics of a spear. When it rotates to the extreme, a flame rises into the sky. Even Source Project soldiers thousands of meters away can feel the powerful source power fluctuations and the traction brought by the rotation. The mutated giant beast that had just exposed its head seemed to be aware of this terrible attack. The horn on its head suddenly flashed and turned red, and a spiral of energy shot out. Boom! The two light beams collided fiercely, and the energy spread out from the center. Huge waves swept across everything and extended tens of kilometers away. All the nearby Source Project soldiers were shaken by this force and flew out. Even the battleships in the sky were affected by the impact and flew out uncontrollably. When the smoke and dust cleared, Lin Chi's figure walked out of the thick fog, with only half of the spear in his hand remaining. The giant beast roared, causing the ground to tremble again, and even cracks in its center continued to spread. When the figure in the smoke became clearer, I could see clearly that there was a broken gun stuck in the spiral spikes on its head. Is the defense so strong? What kind of mutant beast is it? Until now, Lin Chi still didn't recognize the true form of this mutated beast. Although mutant creatures are emerging and endlessly now, their appearance will definitely leave traces of their original appearance. And the unicorn mutant beast in front of them is almost a new creature that has never been seen before. This heavy blow caused the mutated unicorn to become furious, and the strength of its body surged again, and it finally drilled half of its body out of the ground. Only this half is more than 100 meters tall, already exceeding the average 7th level mutant creature. Well on. Analyze this guy's origins. Every creature has its weaknesses. Although these weaknesses will become more hidden after mutation, you can still find flaws in them. The scan has been completed. The target type is unknown and cannot be determined. Whalon replied immediately, but after comparing the data of various mutant beasts, it seemed that no suitable match could be found. The target seems to be a genetic combination of multiple mutated organisms. Sir, please be careful when dealing with it, Whalon reminded him again, with a hint of vigilance in his cold voice. Gene combination? The analysis process of gene combination quickly appeared in front of Lin Chi's eyes. A large number of mutated creatures have burrowed into the ground. But if so many mutated creatures enter the limited space, it will definitely cause fighting. Often the powerful ones will occupy a place. But as the influence of radiation becomes more and more powerful, these mutated creatures continue to devour each other. When an injury occurs, it will also be contaminated with the blood of other mutated creatures. The strong recovery ability, while reshaping the body, also integrates the genes of other mutated creatures into its own body. Through the process of constant trial and error, this terrifying creature was born. Gradually, most of the body of this one-horned mutant beast emerged from the ground, and 3 pairs of limbs appeared on its upper body. The uppermost pair of forelimbs have sharp hooks at the tips. The middle limbs are like thick arms, and the lower limbs are in the shape of claws. The 2 lumps of sarcoma on the back were constantly squirming, and a yellow liquid seeped out from them. We can't let it crawl out again. Lin Chi knew very well how terrifying the 8th level mutated creature was, especially the combination of positions. He had to eliminate it before it completely appeared, so he quickly issued an order to have his spaceship come for support. That spaceship was not only loaded with high-tech energy attacks, but also a giant gun from Lin Chi, which could kill 7th level mutated creatures instantly. But the spacecraft was still parked in the safe zone, and it was too late for support. Then with a thought in his mind, a big bow taller than Lin Chi was gathered in his hand. Such a large bow could not be drawn by a single person, so Lin Chi detached a thick arm from his armor to assist, extending several meters away to stabilize the bow. At the same time, a giant arrow condensed from behind, and it was set up like a spear. Original martial arts. 5 layers of superposition. The skills of bows, arrows and spears are all superimposed together, and the rich source of power permeates the air, almost causing the arrows to emit a bright blue light. With such a superposition of power, the surrounding space feels tight. Go! When an arrow was shot, a layer of ripples appeared in the space, spreading and rippling. Chapter 328 Gene Combination. The seemingly unpleasant arrow actually felt like it was breaking through space. The mutated unicorn beast's body also glowed with red energy, forming a solid barrier. Its thick forelimbs were propped up, and a vortex bloomed from it. It seemed to be resisting this attack consciously, condensing the source power in its body to the extreme, and the surrounding space was also distorted. It's so scary. This smell. After feeling the 2 auras appearing, Yan Ming in the distance couldn't help but exclaimed, and quickly joined forces with others to launch a defense. In just an instant, a ray of light spread out, causing a trembling feeling to surge into the heart and sweep across. There was no sound, no shock of explosion. Only a white light shot past. Jean Na, who was far away in the safe zone, seemed to sense something. She subconsciously entered the extra-dimensional space and locked the source of the vibration. She is extremely sensitive to the power of space, and can clearly sense fluctuations even hundreds of miles away. When the light completely dissipated, the surrounding space waves gradually returned to calm, and the unicorn monster was seen stunned in place, with a huge gap suddenly appearing in its upper body. The gap had a strange smooth feeling, as if it had been cut out by something, even exposing the internal organs and bones inside. However, as the sound of glass breaking was heard, a large amount of mucus suddenly spurted out from the wound, and the unicorn beast rioted again. Roar! A roar that shocked the sky came. The wounds on the giant unicorn beast quickly recovered as before at a speed visible to the naked eye, and its huge body also squirmed violently, and finally emerged from the ground. And 2 legs? When the 8-legged beast stood up, the last pair of giant feet were so thick that they could support the entire body. When the body was raised, it was already over 300 meters in height. At this height, all objects appear extremely small, and the feeling of oppression is simply indescribable. With its huge body, quick recovery ability, and powerful energy, he is simply a monster among monsters. Lin Chi slowly fell from the air. If it had been an ordinary 7th level mutant beast, the blow he had just made would have been torn in half. But this guy didn't seem to be affected at all. In the blink of an eye, the injury just caused had recovered as before, leaving only a shallow mark to prove its existence. After the one-horned mutant giant roared, it seemed that standing up was a bit of a load on the body, so it landed on all fours, and the source power on the one-horned horn began to condense. The red source of light swept across, cutting deep marks around it, locking onto Lin Chi's figure, and bombarding continuously. After dodging one after another, the surrounding area had been bombarded into ruins. This intensity of source light was comparable to a powerful laser weapon, and the damage caused was simply unimaginable. But the attack failed to hit, and gradually the unicorn monster became violent again. It opened its huge mouth, and an even more terrifying laser source spurted out from the mouth, turning into a flame-like energy spread. In an instant, the entire area of several kilometers was enveloped by this energy, and the red energy mist continued to spread, forming an absolute field. DD. The battle armor keeps sending reminder sounds, which is the message of source power erosion. At this moment, even the 7th level source plan battle armor cannot resist the continuous erosion of this energy. Others had already evacuated back to the safe zone. This situation was beyond their ability to deal with, so they had no choice but to go back and look for support. For behemoths in the sky approached quickly. When they landed, violent vibrations even caused the ground to collapse. 400-meter-tall mechas surrounded the unicorn behemoth, each holding a weapon and standing ready. This is the new mecha giant currently developed in the safe zone. After upgrading, its combat effectiveness is several levels higher than before. But facing the unicorn monster that is more than 300 meters tall, he is as weak as a child. Today's mechas adopt a new control method and are controlled by a blue virtual network. The driver only needs to stay in the safe zone to complete remote control. At this moment, the mecha was controlled by 4 experienced warriors. The 4 of them had previously cooperated tacitly in the virtual network and passed through top-level mutant creatures. However, they still felt powerless in the face of this unicorn behemoth. Dear boy, why are you so big? Wu Lian saw the unicorn monster on the screen, and while muttering, he drew out his giant blade and prepared to attack. Thunder slash. The sword was swung out, and the source energy mixed with lightning slanted out and slashed on the body of the unicorn beast. However, the red source power condensed on the giant beast has formed an almost substantial defense layer, and this kind of attack cannot break through this layer of defense. The lightning gradually dissipated, and a layer of ripples appeared, proving that the attack just now was ineffective. It's difficult. The remaining 3 mechas also raised their hands to attack and release source lasers. But apart from deepening the ripples, it had no effect at all. The unicorn behemoth looked down at the 4 opponents who suddenly appeared. It didn't seem to take them to heart at all. It still stepped forward and walked in the direction of Lin Chi. The threat these 4 mechas brought to it was not even as good as Lin Chi in the sky. It seems that the energy barrier on it must be broken first. Otherwise, ordinary attacks will not be able to break through it. The defense of this unicorn behemoth is not strong, probably because of the repulsiveness of the gene combination, which makes its body look a bit bloated. But its recovery ability is extremely terrifying, which is a characteristic of the genes in the body that are active to the limit. Celeste, give me a giant gun. If you want to break through this layer of defense, you must use foreign objects. So the giant spear falling from the sky is perfect. The hatch below the spaceship slowly opened, revealing a deep hole, and then a giant gun extended from it and fell rapidly. Lin Chi quickly flew to the bottom of the giant gun and pressed his hands on it, superimposing abilities layer by layer. The rotating giant gun caused the surrounding airflow, and after extreme friction, a flame rose into the sky. But these were still not enough. And then a blue source of light appeared on the spear, completely blooming under the guidance of the vortex. Open the heaven's gate with one shot. The spear fell to the ground, like a meteorite falling. The loud noise spread, and the ground exploded layer by layer, spreading to more than 10 kilometers away. The giant unicorn in the center was directly smashed into the ground by this terrifying attack, and even its limbs were sunk into deep pits. And the red source force barrier on its body exploded at this moment, and the burst of energy was released, sweeping across everything around it. The 4 mechas that had just stood up from the ruins were once again hit by the energy explosion and flew out. Even with their huge bodies, they could not withstand this energy. When all the smoke and dust cleared, the flesh and blood on the body of the unicorn giant showed signs of melting, and even a pool of pus flowed around it, slowly crawling downwards along the body. Chapter 329 10,000 swords break through the sky. Although this blow did not cause fatal injuries, it seemed to break the genetic bonding boundaries of the unicorn behemoth. The body that is about to melt is a manifestation of genetic collapse. If it continues, the genes of this unicorn behemoth will definitely collapse and turn into a puddle of pus. The mutated unicorn monster's mouth continuously spewed out viscous liquid, and coupled with the melted skin on its body became thinner in just a short moment. As soon as it took a step forward, a large piece of flesh fell off, revealing the bright red muscle tissue inside. It seems that this blow has determined the outcome. Lin Chi slowly landed on the head of a mecha and secretly breathed a sigh of relief. If the previous attack failed to work, he would have to use deeper power to kill this mutated behemoth. However, the unicorn's melting didn't last long. When the mucus on its skin completely fell off, a giant beast with bursting red muscles suddenly appeared in front of Lin Chi. Especially the 2 tumors on the back split open and stretched out a pair of huge flesh wings. The giant unicorn tore off the remaining rotten flesh on its body, stretched one arm above its head, and actually pulled out the unicorn. The spiral horn is a terrifying weapon, and as the source of power turbulates, a thick laser extends from the horn. This change made Lin Chi a little stunned. Although the size of this giant beast was smaller, the aura it exuded was even more terrifying than before. Blue. What's going on? Lin Chi quickly contacted Wei Lan, and at the same time, The 4 surrounding mechas rushed up and began to fight against the mutated behemoth. Sir, it has been detected that the gene in the target body is active and has been reorganized into a new gene chain. The threat level has increased. After scanning, it was concluded that this mutant beast seemed to be more powerful. Several loud noises were heard, and the 4 mechas flew out upside down. One of the arms was even damaged. The mutated giant beast got rid of the restraints of the body and seemed to be more flexible. It raised the spiral light blade in its hand and swung it down suddenly. This kind of weapon, with concentrated source power, has extremely strong attack power. It can cut a mecha in half with just one blow. Stand back first. This guy is difficult to deal with. Lin Chi quickly contacted the people controlling the mecha and asked them to move the damaged mecha, and then stepped forward alone to attract firepower. At this stage, the only person who can deal with this 8th level mutant beast is himself. The Source Project soldiers in the spaceship were also paying close attention to the battle, and when they saw that the situation was unfavorable to them, they immediately launched their strongest attack. A hatch opened below the spacecraft, and a huge gun barrel slowly poked out. Pulse energy cannon. Fire! The blue laser source condenses and roars. A thick laser bombarded the mutated beast heavily, suppressing it and making it unable to continue moving. But as it waved the spiral laser in its hand, the 2 lasers were completely detonated. The wings on its back spread out, and it flew directly. Biological force field. The flying mutated giant beast stirred up the surrounding airflow, forming hurricanes that roared straight towards the spaceship in the sky. Thunder Great Sword. However, when it flew into the sky, a giant sword surrounded by thunder broke through the clouds and fell straight down. Boom! The mutated giant beast in midair could not avoid the attack of the giant sword at all, and was directly smashed to the ground. When the lightning completely dispersed, a huge sword mark suddenly appeared on its back. Among the original martial arts skills that Lin Chi currently masters, Thunder Sword technique has the highest level, and it happened to be upgraded to another level recently. The thunder power of the big sword lucky bag temporarily paralyzed the mutated giant beast, but it quickly resumed action, and even the sword marks on its back were slowly closing. It focused its attention on Lin Chi again. The crisis that this tiny creature felt was too great, but this tiny creature was too nimble to catch him. Therefore, the mutated behemoth looked at it carefully for a while, and then suddenly stepped down hard, causing a layer of waves to spread and tremble. The shock waves with source power spread out in circles, spreading and oscillating. Lin Chi waved his backhand, and a wave of mental power spread out, blocking the shock wave. He raised his hand and pointed a giant sword, flying towards the mutated giant beast. Swordsmanship. After the Thunder Sword technique is advanced, the skill it brings is sword control, and it has special abilities. Originally, with the blessing of mental power, Lin Chi could also urge objects to attack, and even reach the point of wielding a sword. But that was just force control, and the attack power it caused was not powerful. However, the current advanced sword control technique has the advantage of not limiting the size and quantity. Celeste, give me the sword. As Lin Chi's voice fell, a giant sword fell from the spaceship and slashed straight at the mutant beast. This giant sword is not an illusion like the Thunderbolt sword but a real object. Under Lin Chi's guidance, the giant sword became more flexible and versatile. With just one slash, one of the mutant beast's arms was completely broken, and blood sprayed like rain. The mutated behemoth subconsciously attacked with the source of light blade in its other hand. But the giant sword was flexible and could only rotate around. Just changing his strategy instantly made this powerful mutated beast unstoppable. Beasts are just beasts after all. No matter how strong or large they are no match for humans. Lin Chi was suspended in the air, controlling flying sword attacks from a distance, without having to worry about being attacked. This long-range attack method is much more powerful than melee combat, and it also leaves your hands free to use bows and arrows to assist in attacks, suppressed by the giant sword and assisted by arrows. In just a moment, the mutated giant beast had several huge wounds on its body, and its other arm was also chopped off. Losing 2 arms is not a big threat to the mutated behemoth, but it has already felt threatened. Then the wings vibrated and flew straight into the sky. Do you want to run away? Unfortunately, if you meet me, you can only die here. Lin Chi followed and flew over. With a thought, the giant sword in the sky continued to split and turned into small flying swords. 10,000 swords break through the sky. Tens of thousands of flying swords pierce through the mutated beast's body, leaving dense holes and blood spurting out. The pair of flesh wings were also cut into pieces in an instant. leaving only the two main bones of the flesh wings. The creature's stance was broken, and the mutated giant beast spun and fell from the sky, smashing a deep pit into the ground. The body that was pierced by Wang Jian completely damaged the structure of the body. Under such a violent impact, even cracks appeared in the body. The internal organs exploded completely and were squeezed out from the cracks, while the mutated giant beast fell to the ground. Lin Qi raised one hand in the air, and his mental power surged crazily. Tens of thousands of flying swords gathered together again to form the giant sword emitting blue light. One sword strikes the sky and the earth. Chapter 330: The Threat of Mechanical Life Forms. The giant sword slashed down, and the dust settled. The upper half of the mutated behemoth's body split into two, revealing the bright red internal organs inside. As the mutated giant beast crashed to the ground, the originally powerful breath of life gradually dissipated. The spaceship slowly floated nearby, and a group of people flew out and came up to watch. This is the 8th level mutant beast. It's really big. Even if it fell to the ground, this mutated beast was still like a hill, and the blood flowing in its body almost turned into a river. Let the safe zone send people to clean up this mutated beast. All the 8th level materials have been sorted out. As for the flesh and blood, although it is not edible, it should be used as fertilizer or fuel. The mutated beast after radiation has extremely strong energy in its body. As long as it can be broken down, it may have other uses. Moreover, this guy's genes are very special. If a method of combining genes can be developed, it will be a great progress. After Baisu collected a large number of samples first, the remaining 3 intact mechas stepped forward with weapons in hand and began to dismantle the mutated beast bit by bit. Soon, an 8th level crimson gene crystal was taken out from the mutated beast's head and delivered to Lin Qi. This genetic crystal is as big as a human head, faintly emitting red light, and feels warm when placed in your hand. It's just that this genetic crystal also contains a kind of radiation power, which must be cleaned before it can be used. Lin Qi put away the mutated beast's horn. This was the most powerful material on its body, not just because of its special material, but because it could absorb source power and release it. Back in the safe zone, Lin Qi began to study these two things. If the 8th level genetic crystal is made into an energy device, it will be like a small nuclear reactor, which can even increase the firepower of the mecha by a large level. Of course, the awakened ones at this stage cannot use the 8th level genetic crystals at all. Instead of hoarding them and wasting resources, it is better to use them elsewhere. The performance of that unicorn is even more special. It is condensed from the essence of the mutated behemoth. In addition to absorbing the source power and storing it, it can also release it continuously and once. It is almost a biological version of the energy cannon. After just a few minor modifications, this horn became a powerful energy weapon that could be used for both long-range attacks and close combat. After the nuclear explosion, most of the Federation cut off communication and network information connections, so that no one knew what was happening in the outside world. Therefore, the news of Lin Qi's hunt for the 8th level mutated beast was not spread. However, most of the safe zones are under lockdown. Even if the radiation outside has dropped to the critical point, few people go out to explore. A large number of mutant beasts were wiped out, and the remaining ones were dormant in places with weak radiation energy. Humans were also restricted to the safe zone. It seemed that everything was very peaceful. But another hidden force began to develop rapidly. Stand up. Those mechanical life forms that escaped from the mechanical life form base that was destroyed on the island took this opportunity to develop rapidly. In a mode like the Red Alert game, as long as there is one mechanical life form, they will not become extinct. Among the ruins of the nuclear explosion, there are a large number of usable steel materials, and even many new elements have been produced under extreme collision changes. Those mechanical life forms occupy exactly the center of the nuclear explosion, an absolute zone that neither humans nor mutant creatures can enter. It started to decompose from a mechanical behemoth and gradually formed a small base, which expanded bit by bit. In just a few months, it has formed a huge scale. Countless humanoid mechanical life forms flew out of the base and began their conquest of the outside world. At the same time, at the North and South Pole, 2 alien creatures were also developing rapidly, without interference from external factors. They survived the initial difficult moments. It took several more months before the cloud of nuclear radiation completely dissipated, and people walked out of the safe zone on a large scale for the first time. However, even so, most people were still fully armed and had radiation protection functions added to their armor. The blue network in the Central Plains Security Zone also began to spread throughout the blue star immediately. Under the influence of the nuclear explosion, all satellites in space were unusable, and the network signal was completely cut off. This brought many federations back to the era of no network. After several months of hard work, several safe zones even appeared. Turmoil. The relaunch of the blue network, especially the role of the virtual network world, has made everyone see the potential, and even want to join it at a huge cost. Staff outside the city drove auxiliary mechas to repair the road and clear a road large enough for large convoys to pass. This road will extend to a stretch of mountain forest hundreds of kilometers away. It is a mountain forest with the least impact of radiation. It is also a place where low-level mutant beasts gather. It is the main activity route for ordinary awakened people. As for the high-level mutant beasts, they have been far away from the areas of human activity and are dormant in the deep mountains and jungles. The combatants in the Central Plains Security Zone have formed a large scale, and even in order to coordinate combat effectiveness, they have begun to implement the Xingla organization. Lin Chi is retreated behind the scenes, and only occasionally moves in front of everyone to provide confidence to everyone. Supplemented by alien technology, the research and development of the Source Project armor has reached a large scale, but the raw materials are extremely rare, so mass production is not yet possible. On this day, Lin Chi was researching the further development of Yuan martial arts in the underground laboratory, when he suddenly received communications from the 4 major bases. Turning on the communicator, Mr. Zheng's familiar face appeared on the screen. Looking younger. Mr. Zheng. Long time no see. Since the nuclear bomb broke out, Lin Chi has not been to other areas of influence, although he has contacted others a few times. They were all routine greetings. Mr. Zheng nodded and sent a file directly. Lin Chi. Take a look first. Humanity is in trouble. His tone was a little worried. He had never been so cautious even when facing mutant beasts before. I'm used to it when humans don't have trouble. With that said, he opened the file and unfolded the information one by one. Among them, a huge steel base came into Lin Chi's eyes. The alien mechanical lifeform base you discovered last time has reappeared, and its scale is larger than before. They have destroyed a human safe zone and declared war on humanity. The location of this steel base is in the Ross Federation, the central area after the nuclear bomb exploded. The radiation level is so high that even humans wearing protective armor cannot get close to it. But these mechanical life forms can move freely in the radiation center, and the radiation can even become their energy source. Chapter 331 Destroy the Steel Base. In addition to the human form, the mechanical life forms also imitate most of the creatures on the blue star, ranging from small evolved bugs to large mutated giant beasts. And this time, the steel base was not just in one location, but even quickly radiated several nuclear bomb explosion zones. They formed a mechanical army and began a mighty attack on humans. The information collected by Mr. Zheng was not comprehensive, but it contained hidden inside stories that Lin Chi didn't know about. The reason why nuclear bombs were erupted in the past to clean up the land was not entirely due to the overwhelming tide of mutant beasts. It was also partly related to mechanical life. Mechanical life is almost a single super intelligence. In addition to powerful computing power, it also has different personalities and specialties. Among them is a mechanical life that can invade human networks and attempts to forcibly control all human nuclear bombs. Fortunately, humans at that time were aware of the intentions of the mechanical life forms. So after discussion, they dropped all the remaining nuclear bombs in advance to avoid being used by the mechanical life forms in the future. Those mechanical life forms quickly grew in power by taking advantage of sufficient development time after the nuclear bomb exploded and absorbing radiation to condense energy. At this moment, the base they have built has reached a terrifying number. In the low sky, several mechanical warships were flying slowly, all loaded with materials collected from the ruins. These warships looked very simple, and there were several mechanical life guards around them, flying slowly in one direction. Is this what it is? In the ruins not far away, Lin Chi personally led a small team to this place. After understanding the threat of mechanical life forms, several major federations have formed an alliance, each responsible for cleaning up an area. If you want to completely destroy these mechanical life forms, you must eradicate them from the source. Therefore, finding their core base is the most important thing. Commander-in-Chief, this is their transport warship. It transports a large amount of metal from various places, and then smelts it together to manufacture mechanical parts. Low-level mechanical life forms only have the simplest intelligence, but they can slowly evolve through continuous learning. However, Because of the low-level intelligence core, the degree of evolution is limited. But these are the existences with the largest number of mechanical life races. Because they work hard and have no complaints. They are comparable to the lower-level humans and are tireless, working 24 hours a day. He will replenish himself with energy, replace parts for himself, and strictly implement all orders from his superiors. Follow this transport warship and see where their lair is. Lin Chi asked Wei Lan to block the information fluctuations of several people and followed from a distance. After an unknown amount of time, the surrounding radiation energy became stronger and stronger, and more mechanical life forms were encountered. Jean Na, please help hide your figure. There are special detection ways ahead. The closer you get to the radiation center, the layout of the mechanical life forms becomes more strict. And there are even many towering iron towers on the ground, emitting strange fluctuations. But after several people in the team escaped into another dimension, these detection methods were of no use at all. And even the radiated energy could not affect them at all. After entering the steel base unobstructed, as far as the eye could see, a huge furnace was emitting blazing heat, and all the steel that was transported was put into the furnace. After turning into a liquid, the impurities in it are separated and special parts are manufactured. Surrounding the furnace are mechanical factories. As the molten iron flows in, what comes out from the other end is a complete mechanical life, with only the last step to upload intelligent information. At this terrifying speed, thousands of mechanical life forms can be produced in one day. Seeing such a terrifying assembly line, the team members on the side were extremely shocked. The mechanical life form that had always been despised could be so terrifying. As long as they are given enough time, I'm afraid it won't be long before the entire blue star will be occupied by mechanical life forms and become a steel planet. It's not that easy. These mechanical life forms are the lowest level existences and can only be regarded as soldiers. Those high-end intelligent life forms are the most dangerous. When he destroyed the island, Lin Chi was a little surprised as to why the other party didn't choose to resist with all his strength, but just ran away. Later, with Wei Lan's prompting, I understood the calculation method of the mechanical life form. When they faced some problems, they would choose to use probabilities to calculate. After seeing Lin Chi's combat effectiveness and the subsequent arrival of support, the calculated results were simply unbeatable. So they simply abandoned the car to save the money. Handsome, giving up the base that he worked so hard to build. However, this absolute proves how correct the choice of the mechanical life form was. With the help of the beast tide, they waited for an opportunity to control mankind's strongest weapons. Fortunately, they were noticed by the major federations in advance, which prevented them from successfully obtaining this planet control. But the current environment is most suitable for the development of mechanical life forms. Without the intervention of external objects, they can reproduce at a speed beyond human imagination. Everyone quickly figured out the layout of the steel base, except for the furnace in the center. The surrounding mechanical factories were fully automated. The nearby mechanical life forms strictly patrolled the surroundings. The mechanical life forms that were born all had human forms, lower level intelligence. This is a small arsenal. There are no advanced mechanical beings, but these guys are not weak in combat effectiveness. The mechanical life forms that emerged from the assembly line were all fully armed, equipped with a Gauss machine gun and a laser cannon, and also a cold weapons on their backs. The individual combat ability is extremely strong. Even when facing the awakened humans, they will not be at a disadvantage. The mechanical life forms that have transmitted intelligent information will automatically form a team of 10 people to further receive the transmission of combat information. This base must be destroyed. Otherwise, the mechanical life forms will continue to be produced, and the scale in the future will be even more terrifying than the tide of mutant beasts. After a simple calculation, Lin Chi realized the horror of this hazard, and immediately contacted Wei Lan and moved the spacecraft to their coordinates. In the atmosphere, the spaceship slowly got into position. The bottom hatch opened, and a huge sword slowly fell. Under the blessing of gravity, such a giant sword quickly fell towards the blue star, and when it passed through the atmosphere, it even produced blazing flames. The generated energy further stimulated the power of the giant sword, and the entire body of the giant sword gradually turned red and shone brightly. This is a newly made giant sword made by Lin Chi. Some materials from the mutant unicorn monster are added to it. Under special circumstances, the energy inside the giant sword will be automatically triggered. When the giant sword broke through the atmosphere and reached the sky above the steel base, it was finally noticed by the mechanical lifeforms in the base. In an instant, all the mechanical beings raised their heads and held high-energy laser cannons in their hands. In an instant, tens of thousands of lasers shot into the sky like fireworks. Chapter 332: The Battle Between Humans and Mechanical Life Forms. Lasers hit the giant sword falling from the sky. But the energy was unable to break through the flame streamer on the sword. Instead, it made the energy on the giant sword more intense. Boom! The sword fell to the ground and was inserted heavily into the furnace of the steel base. And violent energy burst out instantly. Like a torrent surging, the energy and flames expanded, bursting out with ultimate power without anywhere to vent. Even the base made of steel could not withstand such a violent explosion, and was instantly destroyed into ruins. In the central area, the high temperature emitted when the furnace exploded directly caused the center of the base to slowly melt, forming a huge red pit. The mechanical life forms in the center were melted back into molten iron before they could escape. Some of them were lucky enough to have half of their bodies melted, completely losing their ability to move. Under the cover of Jin Na, Lin Chi and his team members had moved away from the center of the steel base. They were hiding in another dimension, and did not encounter any crisis. After the fluctuations gradually stabilized, Jin Na removed the space barrier, and allowed everyone to appear on the ruins. The scorching heat can make one feel very uncomfortable even when wearing the Source Project armor. And the armor continues to remind people of the threat of radiated energy. Go and clean up what's left. We only have half an hour. After all, this is a radiation center. Even if you wear the Source Project armor, you won't be able to sustain it for long. You must evacuate within the specified time. Everyone nodded and quickly searched around. The attack just now had destroyed most of the equipment in the steel base. The only remaining mechanical life forms were no longer a threat, and were no match for them. Then explosions continued to sound. This team were all elites in the Central Plains security zone. It was naturally easy to eliminate such low-level mechanical life forms. Half an hour later, with the last few explosions, the team regrouped and quickly evacuated the radiation center. At the same time, this situation occurred everywhere in Blue Star. But other federal forces were not as simple as Lin Chi in going deep into the steel base. Because of the radiation energy, ordinary mechanical warships cannot penetrate deep into the radiation center and can only attack from a long distance, or send Project Source soldiers to advance little by little. At most, they can only reach the periphery of the steel base and start a battle with those mechanical life forms. When the opponent is prepared, it can easily resist human attacks, and even suppress them. After the team left the radiation center, they did not return to the safe area. Although the steel base had been destroyed, there were still scattered mechanical life forms nearby, spreading in all directions like mutant beasts. Those mechanical transport battleships that collect steel, and the war machines that patrol and kill are all threats that must be eliminated. Everyone uploaded the battle videos to the Blue Network to let other Project Source soldiers in the safe zone understand the fighting methods and strength of the mechanical life forms. Through the training of the Azure Virtual Network, they can fight against mechanical life forms and learn combat experience without even leaving the safe zone. After training, they can go out to hunt for mechanical life under the leadership of senior awakeners. The materials in the mechanical life body also have considerable value. Its intelligent core only needs to be rebuilt by Azure to become a very convenient intelligent assistant. The internal energy core can also become a convenient energy source for human use. For a time, there was a wave of mechanical craze in the human camp, and the desire to hunt mechanical life forms was even stronger than hunting mutant beasts. The battle did not last long before the mechanical life forms began a full-scale attack. A large number of war machines appeared in the human field of vision. Mechanical fighter planes could even be seen flying over in the sky every day, bombing the attacking area. Within the Central Asian Federation, especially in the southern region, the mechanical life forms have slowly been approaching, forming a war line. The camp formed by humans withstood the first wave of attacks, and the two sides were stalemate on the ruins. The huge mechanical life form, especially a 7th-level behemoth, advanced forward with heavy steps, and was equipped with a full load of weapons, firing like a torrent. A group of mechanical behemoths from behind charged through the ruins, raising a cloud of smoke and dust. Those humanoid mechanical beings, under the cover of the mechanical behemoths, continued to advance forward. There is no city wall protection, and no energy barrier protection. So humans participating in this battle must have powerful Source Project armor protection. Otherwise, ordinary awakened people would not be able to withstand the scattered energy lasers and cannonballs. All the forces within the Federation gathered together. A total of more than a dozen giant battle armors, hundreds of medium-sized mechas, thousands of Source Plan warriors, and a large amount of logistics. Dozens of huge warships in the sky continued to provide artillery support, and they were able to withstand the charge of the mechanical army. The collision between the giant mecha and the steel giant erupted with a shock wave that instantly cleared an area, and no one dared to come even close. Other source plane warriors used their own methods. Some flew into the sky to escape. Some activated energy, used fire and thunder, and hurricanes exploded. What surprised Lin Chi the most was that an awakened person who controlled metal appeared in the 4 major bases, within the scope of his influence. As long as those mechanical life forms get close to the area affected by the ability, their solid steel bodies will be torn apart in an instant, and some will even be twisted into twists. But his ability has not reached its limit. At least those large mechanical beings cannot yet control it. Whose subordinate is this man? So brave? Lin Chi couldn't help but ask. If this person could be trained, he would be the main force in dealing with mechanical life forms in the future. After all, this ability is too powerful to suppress metal. Commander Lin, please don't make any plans for him. He is the treasure of our base. This time, Mr. Zheng was among the team sent by the 4 major bases. However, he did not have the command of the operation this time, but was a man he had never seen before. The people in the safe zone of the capital were also unknown, but both Duan Ruiyun and Dongfang Song were obeying that person's orders, so they were obviously people with special status. There were several other safe zone commanders, most of whom Lin Chi knew. The current situation of these small safety zones is not optimistic. The overall strength is insufficient. Scientific and technological progress is entirely provided by the large safety zones. Even some important weapons and equipment are obtained from the 3 large bases. If the Central Plain safe zone hadn't resisted most of the attacks, those few small safe zones would have been wiped out by the tide of mutant beasts long ago. And this time the crisis of mechanical life forms, once it crosses the defense line, will be a disaster for the small safe zone. Therefore, at the beginning of the war, the leaders of these safe zones all took the initiative to lead their teams to come for support. On the one hand, they wanted to highlight their presence, and on the other hand, they also wanted to seek asylum. Chapter 333 Fusion Mechanical Behemoth. The brutality of the war was far more difficult than dealing with mutant beasts. After all, the intelligence of mutated creatures is not high, and long-range attacks are very effective at hitting targets. Often one awakened person can deal with a large group. However, the civilized order of mechanical life forms is higher. Those war machines advance in an organized and recorded manner, defeating the source plan warriors who are fighting on their own. It often takes a strong person to take action to save the situation. Lin Chi symbolically supported a few big swords, cleared out those giant war machines, and coordinated the overall situation. Wail on. Look for high-level mechanical life forms. Under any circumstances, if you kill the opponent's command, the opponent's offensive intensity will definitely be reduced. With such a huge number, there will definitely be high-level mechanical life commands, as long as they are killed. Not to mention the impact on morale. Without the high-level mechanical life command, these low-level mechanical life will definitely not be as powerful as they are now. The organization is disciplined. Sir, the target location has been confirmed. Both are intelligent life forms, and the specialness of Wei Lan is far beyond the physical performance of mechanical life forms, especially the dominance of Blue Star. It only took a moment to capture the location of the high-level mechanical life based on the information data spilled on the battlefield. After the coordinates were shared with Lin Chi, a prominent location was marked for him. I took action to kill him. You take the opportunity to simulate the opponent's consciousness data and see if you can control these mechanical life forms. Lin Chi condensed a bow, an arrow in his hand, crossed a distance of tens of kilometers, and locked the opponent's position. Spiral arrow. Yulong throws the world to pieces. The arrow locks on the target and flies out automatically. The spiral arrow condenses into an ultimate whirlwind, cutting through all obstacles along the way, and even directly pierces the mechanical behemoth blocking the front. The high-level mechanical life form far behind the mechanical team also noticed the arrows attacking him. The data is calculated quickly, and the feeling is not good. Dongjie quickly mobilized the surrounding mechanical beasts to form a thick barrier in front. It even deployed several layers of energy defense. But there are always mistakes in data calculations, especially with Lin Chi's attack method that can ignore everything and lock the target. The steel barrier was like paper, being penetrated directly. The rotating arrows were like a swimming dragon, locking on the high-level mechanical life form, breaking through the energy defense layer with one arrow, and exploding directly. Most of the body of this high-level mechanical life form was destroyed in an instant. exposing the delicate parts inside. However, this blow did not completely destroy him. The remaining half of his body quickly absorbed several nearby mechanical life forms, and actually fused together. A mechanical life form can still survive as long as its core is immortal, let alone this high-level special one. His body was originally made of nanotechnology parts, which were refined to the extreme. He could freely change his form and simulate other mechanical life forms. At the same time, you can also fuse the bodies of other mechanical life forms into your own to enhance your own strength. After being attacked, he realized that his traces were exposed and directly burst out with his strongest strength. Mechanical life forms were fused to the body one after another to form the parts of the body, and they were still expanding rapidly. Almost in the blink of an eye, the mechanical life form surging like a torrent actually combined into a giant beast hundreds of meters high. The shape of this giant steel beast was something Lin Chi had never seen before. It had a body like a mountain, and its lower body was densely packed with limbs. The body was covered with steel tentacles, and the tops were all forked claws. The 9 mechanical heads roared and roared, condensing red source light from time to time. As soon as the mechanical behemoth appeared, it attracted the attention of the combined forces. Everyone subconsciously looked towards the mountain-like behemoth in the distance. What is that? The densely packed mechanical tentacles were squirming like giant snakes, almost sweeping across a kilometer radius. And the speed was not slow. In just a moment, they had reached the front line. It has been detected that the target energy is extremely powerful. It is recommended that the team evacuate. Lin Chi was about to mobilize his manpower to attack the mechanical beast when he suddenly heard a blue prompt in his ears and felt something bad. So he quickly flew into the sky and issued orders on the main channel. In name, Lin Chi had absolute command over the mobilization of forces in the major safety zones. But when it came time to fight, they basically fought independently, although everyone knew that Lin Chi's strength far surpassed theirs. On the battlefield, strength did not make people surrender. The young men had no commanding qualifications, and anyone with a discerning eye could see that the 2 people from the 4 major bases and the safe zone of the capital were all gilded by Lin Chi's strength. Everyone, evacuate the battlefield and stay away from the mechanical behemoth. With the help of Wei Lan's ability, Lin Chi's orders were issued to all the Source Project soldiers. Not even the soldiers in charge of logistics were spared. Although I don't know why there was such an order to retreat. All the soldiers in the Central Plain safety zone immediately executed Lin Chi's order, quickly evacuated, and even covered their teammates behind them. A few small safe zones were hesitant, but without the protection of strong people around them, they were instantly in trouble, and they quickly withdrew as a last resort. But there are always some people who don't believe in evil and still stay where they are. After all, the materials in a mechanical life form are of extremely high value. Those metal parts alone are of great value, not to mention the intelligent core and energy core. Among them were teams from the 4 major bases. When the man in charge heard Lin Chi's order, a trace of disdain suddenly appeared on his face. A giant mechanical beast scared him? And you still claim to be the strongest person in Blue Star? Although the mechanical behemoth brought a strong sense of oppression to everyone, it was not impossible to defeat. After all, in the previous battles, they had destroyed a large number of mechanical behemoths and found a loophole to deal with the mechanical life forms. So the 2 ignored Lin Chi's order and privately mobilized the Project Source warriors and giant mechas in their team to face the mechanical behemoth. Haha. How can an ordinary person who has never received systematic study understand this kind of Legion combat? On the battlefield, it is not the strength of an individual that can influence the situation of the battle. The commanders of the 4 major bases flew into the sky, quickly issued deployment orders, and at the same time let the support troops in the rear launch fire attacks. For a moment, artillery fire roared. Countless missiles baptized the front, and lasers crisscrossed the area. The powerful momentum instantly overwhelmed the mechanical behemoth, and even the surrounding mechanical beings were covered by the explosion, causing heavy casualties. Continue to cover with firepower and suppress it first. Although he took over the command, this person was still not careless and his command ability was very impressive. But the opponent was not an equal creature after all. After the fire coverage ended, a large number of remains of mechanical life forms appeared on the ground. It looked like a tragic situation, but the mechanical behemoth was filled with a layer of red energy, and an inexplicable gravitational force caused all the surrounding debris to converge on it, gradually assembling it into a larger body.